He knows. Yeah, he knows.
Yeah, he went with double sign, yeah.
Okay.
Nice.
Because you don't have to even worry about it. You just cut fruit, mix that with your favorite wine,
Yeah,
white
yeah.
or red, and there you have it.
Okay.
So you saw what this is gonna look like, but, we're gonna have to settle on the,
Yeah.
getting everything to the agenda.
As long as we, I mean, this doesn't necessarily, or as long as we just have it.
No, we will. I'll file it with this in the book.
Great, okay, that works.
We're also now going to include these meetings on the front page site, and it'll say,
Great, so like right there.
yeah, upcoming meetings,
Yep.
right there,
Okay.
upcoming meetings. And you
Yep.
click on there, you can see the calendar, or you can see,
Had that discussion today with Denny and I.
Perfect.
All right, oh, by the way, I'll send you a text message on your text message yesterday.
This is March, April, May. Oh, we lucky to get this damn restaurant. Yeah. I take ginseng every morning. I'll do like these other GABA calms, you know, just whatever.
All right, good morning, everyone. It's 9:30, so I'm going to call the meeting to order. We'll start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, start off with determination of a quorum.
Good morning, Board and Summer Glen. Yes, we have a quorum with all 7 board members present, and the notice was posted in accordance of Florida Statute 720 and the Summer Glen governing documents.
Great, thank you. And today's meeting is a workshop meeting, not a regular board meeting, so the items on our agenda are for discussion purposes only. We will not be voting on anything today, but we will be discussing each of these topics to make sure we have a better understanding, so when it does make it to a board agenda, we have all the information we need. So with that, start off with resident input on the agenda items. First up is George Englert.
George Englert, Lot 546. Denny Wyckoff and I are here to represent the Summer Glen Softball Association and support the board's discussion on the proposed revision to the amenities policy relative to the softball field. I want to inform my fellow homeowners that this proposed revision will literally level the playing field and bring maintenance, repair, and remediation of the softball field infield into alignment with other sports surfaces in the community. Since the inception of the amenities policy 9 years ago, no club or general user has had the burden of maintaining the surface they utilize, as had the SGSA. Not pickleball, not basketball, not tennis, bocce, horseshoes, or shuffleboard. No billiards, gaming, line dancing, even the RV club. The proposed revision will move maintenance of the softball field infield to the HOA where it belonged all along. Thank you.
Great. Next up is Marilyn McCroyson.
Marilyn McCrossin, Lot 667. I'm up here to discuss or to have some comment on the item E, the United Landscaping estimate for mulch for the Florida Friendly Garden.
Excuse me, Marilyn, you need to talk into the mic, please.
Oh. Okay. The Florida Friendly Garden estimate on mulch. Just a little bit of history on the Florida Friendly Garden. In 2018, Martha, who was the president at the time, did a community betterment project there. I don't think we even have such a thing anymore. I've never heard it, but I found it in the papers. And that small area was given to the garden club. We kept it up until probably maybe 5 years ago, and we were included in the landscaping contract. So because our group is aging, the average age is about 70, and we wanted the landscaping to take it over, and they did. But of course, they didn't do the greatest job. They waited as long as they could to do any trimming, which is important for plants, and they only wanted to put mulch down when they felt like it. So probably once a year they trimmed a few things, but it wasn't very good. So this time when we got the landscaping budget, we did have that included, but now I see the mulching is we have to pay extra for that, and I guess that's the way the contract goes. But that price, $2,088 for that small area, is ridiculous. I don't know if we have to stay with them because they're our landscaping group, but I call Lowe's, and I can get a 65-bag load of mulch delivered to us for $208. And our garden group would spread it. It wouldn't cost you hardly anything. So that's quite a reduction. And I asked the members, could you put in a half an hour to help us spread that? And they said they could. And actually, I don't know where they came up with that price. I don't know if we are locked into them to do this because they are a landscaping group. But I'm saying there's an alternative to this. So, and I know when you get an estimate, that includes the product you're using, and then you have to double it for the labor. But we would do the labor. It won't take us more than an hour. So I think if you want to consider this, I think it would be a big savings for our HOA if you would not pay that much to have mulch delivered. If that's all it included. I didn't know if there was more included in that or than just mulch. It just says mulch. So I don't, when you get to that discussion.
Okay.
So thank you for any consideration.
Thank you. Next up is Carol Steck.
Carol Steck, Lot 1006. This is on the proposal for the sod behind the 18th hole. I'm assuming we're talking about the eroding hillside that faces the parking lot. Last fall sometime there were two proposals from various vendors for different materials to be placed there to help with the erosion, because I understand we've got big problems with erosion there, keeps clogging up the drains, we're going to have huge issues. Now we're looking at a proposal to put sod in. The grass hasn't grown there before. Is St. Augustine grass really good for erosion control on a hillside? And St. Augustine grass is not going to stop golf carts from riding over the darn stuff, and of course, wearing it away, and we're right back where we started. So I'm really curious as to why this is the only proposal in there for doing something about that hole. I mean, if we're going to fix it, I would remind you, didn't we try grass several times on the smaller hillside that goes down towards the pond. And I think we actually paid for sod once or twice for that, and all of a sudden that's totally gone, and now we have the ginger instead. So let's please do the right thing and the most effective thing. Thank you.
Okay, next up, Steve Privet.
Good morning. Steve Privet, Lot 626. Yeah, I want to speak about 6G as well, about the sod proposal, 15,000 square foot of sod going to the same hillside that Carol mentioned. I think it would be prudent as well for us to pause a bit, get the soil tested, make sure that it can support new sod spending. Now it's going to be upwards of $9,000, $10,000 to do that. So 37 pallets is what it looks like it's estimated at. One thing, I mean, the trees are beautiful, but they do suck the energy out of the ground. So that's why I'm thinking that if we get a soil test done and check it out before we go putting sod under those trees. Even though it's shade-tolerant sod, I'm personally skeptical that it will work. That's my comment. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up, Barbara Gaynor.
Barbara Gaynor, Lot 1015. I'm pretty sure that my comment today is probably supposed to be at the end of the meeting, but since everybody's talking about United Grass Service, they are doing a terrible job on our lawns. I spoke with the gentleman who's in charge.
Sorry, you're correct, Barbara. This is.
So I'll wait to the end?
Yeah, if you would.
Yeah, because it
wouldn't mind,
has
thank
to
you.
do with United, so I thought I would.
No, this is specific to these projects, but at the
Okay.
end of the meeting, you can talk
Thank
about a general issue as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. And next up, Diane Doan.
A little taller. Diane Doan, Lot 559. I'm talking about the landscaping in particular. The sod over by the 18th hole. I went online and looked at it and what you're suggesting, and it came up and said it thrives with 4 to 6 hours of sunshine. And the higher mowing, it's got to be mowed higher, 3 to 4 inches. And again, we've done grass there before. In last year, the master planning group had proposed putting in plantings. I can't even remember what it is now. I have it over here. I'm sorry? Juniper, thank you. Creeping juniper, yeah. And the big problem is, it's the golfers. They keep driving over that. And you can put grass in there, and it's a waste of money. I think we should be going back and looking at it again, because we did make a proposal and the board denied it about putting juniper in there with actually edging to hold everything in. In my opinion, I don't think it's going to work. And the other thing I wanted to mention too is about the at the pool maintenance building, we're proposing putting rock there, and I would strongly suggest this. It came up last year too, and it was denied. That area there is becoming worse because they're draining the pool using the diatomaceous earth. It's all getting eaten up. Plus, the asphalt is starting to crack in that area too because it's wearing down. It's eroding. So if we can get some, they're proposing putting edging around that whole area and putting rock in there. And that would also protect the drains that they've got cones sitting out there. Plus, it'll look a lot nicer because you've got the restaurant right there, and it'll be a cleaner look. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that wraps up, everybody signed up to speak on agenda items. So go ahead, get into business. So the first item up on the schedule is 6A, proposal for changes to the social committee charter. So I don't know if, Bill, you want to make any comments leading into this?
It was discussed pretty thoroughly at the last committee meeting. And as you can see, the changes or recommended changes or changes being requested are in red in the document. And the social committee just wanted to get it on our agenda for some discussion to possibly be voted on at the next meeting.
Any questions?
Yeah, you know, when I look, I guess the red line is what the changes are being requested.
Yes.
There's just a few, and they're very minor. I guess it really serves to define something a little more clear, but there doesn't appear to be anything that's earth-shattering changing.
No, you're correct.
So I didn't go back and look at the, it refers to our policy number as far as establishing committees. What's in red here? Is it different from what's in the,
Yes. No?
okay, so why do we want to add it in if it-
Right.
Just for clarification for the charter, because some of the charter, as new committee members come on, they're not familiar with that policy, and then it just makes it easy, so then they keep going back.
okay, because, so in the past, what we were trying to do is, instead of having this verbiage in every single committee charter, we said, let's put it in the establishing committee policy, and then just refer to that policy, so we don't have to update 10 documents, we only have to update one document. This is kind of reverting back to where we're now having to update multiple documents if we make a change. So I'm okay, if there's something that is unique to this committee that's not covered in the establishing committee's policy, it makes sense to put it in here. But if it's identical to what's already in there, let's not recreate this again. Let's have it in just one place, and that's my thoughts at least.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Probably better with my mic off. Just some comments, not relative to the changes, but some comments just in terms of the charter, now that it's up here and talk about it and it's similar to other ones. We have a lot of things in these things that just don't seem to make a whole heck of a lot of sense. You know, why would we specify a minimum amount of members of a committee that has, you know, no authority, it's advisory committee? If you didn't have 7 people interested in being on the social committee, does that mean we eliminate the social committee? I think the minority numbers or the minimum numbers just doesn't make a lot of sense. It probably shouldn't be in charters. Just personal comment. Down in the responsibility paragraphs, they talk about proposals for incorporation in the annual budget and the like. After they said, if you've got a zero-cost budget, there's nothing incorporated and will ever go into a budget. So that it's a non-relevant comment in there. Programs shall be submitted to the SGOA management and the social committee, who in turn will submit it to the SGOA finance committee for incorporation into the annual budget. There's nothing in the annual budget if the policy is you're going to have a zero annual budget. It's just, you've got.
Well, there's 2 offsetting accounts, one for revenue, one for expenses.
Yeah, but they don't mean anything. You know, you could put 8 million there,
Well,
and 6. It's a nonsensical in my opinion. Okay.
The only time it would make sense is if somewhere down the road they were a money maker or a negative. That's the only time it would apply.
Yes.
Any other
Yeah,
comments?
No, not really.
You know, the other thing that shows up in red, it says preparing, it used to just say preparing event tickets, now it's flyers and tickets. So was there an issue that had to get added in, or something that came up, or? I'm sorry, come on up to the mic so we can.
For clarification, it didn't state that the SGOA would be responsible for the flyers, it just said the tickets.
Okay.
Right now, I do the flyers, but I'm not always gonna do the flyers. So, I mean, I do flyers for others, so it was just for, you know, management knowing that they would be responsible for doing flyers as well, and that the social committee doesn't have to create their own flyers or tickets, or, it was just an added thing that got missed out originally when they did it.
All right, now, having you said that, so are you just giving them the information and then they just create the nice-looking
Yes.
flyer? Or
Yep.
they're responsible for creating everything from scratch?
No, they would get all the information, just like they do for other flyers that they create. They'd get all the information and they'd create the flyer, send it to the committee for approval, and then post it and run the tickets.
Okay.
I would assume that any flyers that are needed for a particular event or any ticket production for a specific event would be included in the P&L request for that event and would be part of the cost of that event.
Yeah, if it's something that required printing, but I think what main thing you're talking about is just what goes on the bulletin board and what goes into the.
In the weekly and in the
weekly
summer
and-
dreams.
Yeah.
In Summer Dreams, so. Normally, there's just the time involved to create the
Yep.
thing. Okay. Any other discussion on this? Okay, so I guess recommended changes then is if it's under term of office, if there's nothing there that's different from the establishing committee's policy, just take it out, just leave the reference to the establishing committee's policy. If you guys want to talk about what Bill mentioned as far as eliminating the minimum number, right now it says no less than 7, but no more than 9. If you want to consider making any modifications.
I would think that's much more in reference to the overall committee, that they're all the same, they all do that. So my irritation with that is that, committees just in general, unless it's, someone like the DRB, which is has some authority, the minimum number of people on the committees as a requirement in general in the committees, just to me, makes no sense.
Okay.
Except if you get down to one person or two people. I mean, I could see that being not a good thing in the end, Yeah. So I think there should be a minimum number. Maybe 7's too high.
But if you end up with 5 people only,
That's what I'm thinking.
now
5.
you violated your charter, what does that mean? You dissolve the committee because they only have 5? It makes
Well, if
not
you
a hell
have-
of a lot of sense.
And if you have 2, I don't know.
But when you get a committee which, like most committees are purely advisory and have no authority, it doesn't really matter if there's 1 or 2. Is there anything they're gonna do to spend money, they gotta come to the board, and it's just.
I understand, Bill. It just, is it a problem right now? Are they having a problem?
Yeah, we never had a problem in 20 years with it.
No,
So why
it's not a
address
problem.
it?
Well, that's,
I don't know.
yeah.
That's my thought.
Okay.
Thank you, Jeff.
No, so no other discussion. We'll move on to the next item then. So 6B is Social Committee proposal for fashion show and luncheon. So is anyone from the Social Committee here prepared to discuss?
Same person.
Okay. In the past, we've always gotten a caterer outside, and one of the comments was made that we'd like to partner with the clubs and stuff that are here working together. So we partnered with the Cook Together. They would be doing strictly the food for the event. We originally would like for them to be able to just have the tickets made out to them because we've already got all the decorations from last year, so we don't have any other expenses that we're gonna have. It's just the food expenses. In talking with the office, they said that we had to collect the money for tax purposes. But the Cook Together has their own EIN number, or TIN, whatever it's called. They have their own number. So I submitted this with the thinking, do we still have to collect the money and pay the tax, or can they just have the checks written directly to them?
because the social committee is not going to have any other expenses for it, except for if we pay the tax, we'll have the money from the craft fair that's going to help cushion that. But it kind of is like, okay, we're collecting the money, we pay the tax, and then we got to give them the money that they need. And we're estimating 160 people. So,
Do they need a catering license?
Well, I have two questions. In the past, we used Pasta Fair, I believe.
right.
And of course, in order for us to pay Pasta Fair, they had to apply to First Service with all the requirements, including insurance, liability insurance, as well as W-9 and whatever else was required to become a vendor. Kevin, is the Cook Together Club set up as with a separate ID number and a sales tax certificate on file?
They have the TIN, but they are not set up for the taxes.
Well, in order for us to pay them, in order for them to operate under the policy of a club that handles financial transactions, they need to comply with that policy. Now, there's obviously plenty of time for them to do that, but they need to be registered either with the state of Florida as a business or have a separate federal ID number. And some people get confused. In the past, people have submitted a Social Security number as a federal ID number. That is not the case and is not the same. And anybody using the Social Security number better be careful because that can make you personally liable. But we got to make sure the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed, and we have the right information on file. But what we do give up, if we use a local club, we give up the liability section, okay? Because they're not a insured, registered caterer. Not that we don't have some of the clubs that do the food themselves. I think there is one that does that. They provide their own, they cook the food themselves. But they are a separate business, registered either with the state or with the IRS, and therefore that makes them responsible and liable. So we need to make sure of those things. I have nothing against using the Cook Together Club, but keep in mind there is an increased liability as opposed to using a third-party caterer like Pasta Fair. And we have to make sure that all the documentation is on file. Okay.
What is the difference between them and the Veterans Club?
The Veterans Club is registered with the IRS as a 501(c) charity.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay. So,
They are a separate organization recognized by the federal government.
okay.
So I think the two things to concentrate on, number one, you're selling tickets to this event, and then you're having an internal group make the food that is not insured to actually cook food for sale like that for an event. There's not a caterer, they're a club. And so what if somebody gets sick? Where does the liability lie from somebody getting sick if they come back on the association? So if they want to cook like that, they want to cook for the event, they're going to have to set up some extra paperwork. And plus, they're going to have some kind of insurance to cover themselves in case somebody decides to go against them. It's a different story when it's volunteer food. And you make stuff and then the group is part of the group and you eat something that's a voluntary thing. It's a different thing when you're paying for the food. And that's just the state of Florida. So it's our job to just make sure that everybody's covered. And you're a part of the HOA like everybody else is, and we want to make sure that there aren't any issues there. So.
Okay. So if they get set up with that being said, can they sell the tickets and collect the money? Instead
they're
of,
set up as
instead
a-
of us doing that?
If
instead
they're
of-
set up under the club policy, so like the pickleball club has been set up, Flamingo Club is set up appropriately, Veterans Club is set up appropriately, and the Softball Association is set up appropriately. They need to make sure they're set up appropriately. Now, if they want to make themselves available to be a caterer, that's a different level.
Yeah, but all
That
these
means they
clubs,
would need to have a caterer license.
all these clubs that you just mentioned serve food at their events.
At their events,
At their events.
at their
Correct.
private events.
No, it's not private. They sell tickets to them. And they come. What do you mean by private?
Well, I'm thinking.
We're opening a can of worms here that's been going on for 20 years, and all of a sudden, all these restrictions are being put on these clubs. But you look at every club, they're having the same problem then.
What's that saying?
Including the Veterans Club.
This is right, what we just looked at.
Dan, when I have a chance to talk on, I happen to have a document here that we were requested by our insurance company, 9 pages of questions. Things are not the same as they were 5 and 10 years ago. Liability insurance is a big deal today. A lot of money's involved, a lot of liability. I don't want to get into the detail, but when it's my opportunity to talk as a director, I am prepared to talk about that. But things are not the same as they were year over year over year. And but we keep saying, well, we did it for 20 years and there was never any problem. Things change going forward. Just look at the billboards with Dan Newland and Morgan & Morgan. Watch TV with Dan Newland and Morgan. You see them on TV, you see them on billboards. It's a different environment than 20 years ago.
I was going to add, Tom, to that. We just looked at the Summer Glen Social Committee Charter, and under 4, it says all event vendors, which I assume they would become a vendor, or performers must meet standard requirements of our management company in place at the time. This would include W-9s, proof of liability, workman's compensation insurance, and in some cases, quote, hold harmless agreement, unquote, as suggested by our insurance agents. So we're in violation of our own social
We
committee
could
policy.
be in violation
could
if
be
we
in
used it.
Yeah, because they're not a vendor, they don't have a catering license. I think it is a slippery slope.
Yeah, the bottom line, selling tickets to a show is one thing, but when you deal with food or alcohol, there are very, very stringent rules out in the marketplace that various and assorted food vendors are forced to conform to for very good reasons, for health reasons. And one bad situation can overrule 10,000 good situations when you're selling food, if the warming tray isn't quite warm enough and something happens and someone gets sick or get hurt. Well, if that happens and Pasta Fair is doing it, that's Pasta Fair's problem. If it's if it's the restaurant doing it, it's the restaurant's problem. But when you get into a club situation dealing with outsiders, unless you can structure it so that it's the club's problem if there's an issue, then it falls to the HOA as to who's going to get sued when 4 people got sick because something wasn't kept warm enough or whatever problem is. And that can be a lot of money, and it just doesn't seem to be prudent to expose the 1,024 property owners in here to something as simple as that when you just set the requirements that anyone selling food has to be doing it on their own nickel with their own liability and insulate the community from potential problems. Is the problem likely? No. But if it occurs, it would be extremely expensive.
What happens if they ask for a donation instead of a sale of a ticket?
You've got to be a registered charitable organization. If you're saying it's a donation, I would think.
I would think the same liabilities.
We think,
exist.
but we're not sure.
I'm not so sure it's the sale or non-sale, Dan, but I think it's the inside versus outside.
Right.
Okay, I think it's different if a club is just, you know, a group of property owners within the community or doing something and doing potlucks and things like that.
Right.
But when you get outside, you know, it becomes, you know, someone from off the street comes to the fashion show and gets sick. Then you have the real trigger of huge potential problems.
And I think Marie
I'm not sure.
And I think Marie summed that up pretty adequately.
You know, there is one way around some of that we've never really considered. You can get event insurance for a single event that is minuscule in cost. In some cases, it's under $400 or $500 for a major event that covers a liability if there's an incident related to that event. We've never really enforced that, but that is an option that we may want to look at. You know, if an event is costing $4,000 or $5,000 and event insurance from a third party is $250, you know, it's a non-issue. You get it, okay? Again, I'll have more comments later on when I talk about this questionnaire that Kevin and I got, you know. But there are options that make it easier to do certain things like that.
And just to clarify too, we don't sell to the outside public for the fashion show. It's strictly residents.
The only other question I have, Jody, you know, when I look at the P&L, it's $27 our cost, not 25, but we like to round off and those kind of numbers. But when you look at the P&L, it really is $27 a person as opposed to 25. If 27 is too high, then maybe we're paying too much for catering. I can tell you that when we first moved here, my wife went to several of the fashion shows where they had sandwiches, and the cost was $15 to $18, and the place was packed. So having a fancier luncheon and so forth doesn't keep people away, bring more people in, because people were happy, and it was always sold out when it was simple. So, you know, we just keep that in mind, you know, when you price these things out, you know. I mean, there's always additional costs that come through. Somebody needs to put some things on the table, and things always come through. They're $50 here, $80 here, $20 here, but they add up. So, you know, if we want to estimate the costs, then we should divide by the number of tickets. In this case, it's $25 a person for the number of people, and we're charging 25, but that doesn't include sales tax, so it's really 27. So we should do the math correctly. Just, you know, it's not a big deal, but it's the right way to do it.
Jeff?
Yeah.
Do we need to give Jody some direction as to whether we think it's a good idea to use the Cook Together Club as her vendor? Or she should go back to
the drawing board.
planning table? I mean, I think we need to get, it sounds like we're somewhat all over
I
the
think there's
place.
enough concern out there that we need to have further discussion on this. Because, you know, is this now going to become a fundraising event for Cook Together?
Mm-hmm.
You know, so they're going to, if you're paying them $4,000, question about who pays the sales tax. But if their expenses is $2,500, I assume the $1,500 Cooking Together is going to keep as a fundraiser for themselves.
So I can just, well, that's why I decided to do this early, because I knew there was going to be some conversation. So going back to the drawing board with them and talking about the paperwork and everything that they're required to have according to the new laws or whatever
I think
whatever the new details are that the clubs need.
And I think what it might make sense to do is compare. We've used Pasta Fair. The restaurant is available, and they have catered some events. Cook Together, if they want to be in that business, they all ought to compete, and we should make it. The social committee should make a decision what makes sense. You know, are we getting the right value for the amount of money we're spending? Or we're asking the board to cover, you know? I mean, that makes it easy. If they're all comparing apples and apples, then, and all have good quality, then you go with the cheaper one, I would think. You know, but you gotta compare apples and apples, you know?
But we still have to address the concern that, are they a true caterer? Is Cook Together, can they cater an event?
Well, they would have to have some kind of, usually if you're a restaurant, you have a catering license locally as part of the restaurant, where TAG can actually cater events here and be licensed to do it. The Cook Together Club would not be. So that would be a risk that we would have to make a decision. Do we want to bear that risk? The big thing to be careful about is you don't want to be claimed as being negligent. Because when somebody's suing you can find a reason to say you were negligent, the liability goes way up quickly. And again, years ago, that was never a problem. Things are not the same, as we well found out with some issues we have locally, you know. So it's not the same as it was.
I have a question. I'm trying to distinguish how this is different than Mike Cardillo and Ian Webster doing hot dogs and hamburgers out on the patio and charging a minimal fee to cover their cost.
They're not associated with any groups or committees. It was just a personal thing.
Okay.
That may be a legal question.
That's a good question.
That could be a legal question. I mean, when you're in the HOA, you have deep pockets, okay? And when something happens, they go right for the person with the deep pockets. The Veterans Club, Dan, if something happened, an outsider got hurt bad and sued the Veterans Club, they're going to go after the HOA. That's where the money is. The money is not in the Veterans Club.
Well, to Bill's point, what are they doing on the patio? The patio is under lease.
This was like last year.
Okay.
Before
It's under-
it
It was
was
before it
Oh,
was.
okay. It's
Before
under
there
lease
was
to
even a
TAG.
restaurant
Yeah.
there. There wasn't a restaurant
Okay,
there.
I'm going to cut off discussion here. So we need to have some follow-up with our insurance, with our liability insurance carrier, to find out what is already covered with our existing policy, and if events like this aren't already covered, what would it take? Is it just a single event type thing as these come up, and then whatever the cost is of that for that single event insurance? But this requires some discussion with our insurance carrier.
I also think we should include our attorney to see how all these clubs, now we're talking about one club today, but we have to be able to know what all the other clubs are covered too.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
what?
Well, I mean, the main thing is, when you talk about coverage, it's discussion with our insurance carrier. You know, if we're worried about being sued, then that's a discussion with the attorney.
Yeah,
Well, we want to make sure we're legally
well, that,
in compliance with the state of Florida
Well, yeah.
as far as
Yes?
food.
It's
Food, as Bill said, food is kind of a critical thing.
I just,
Tobacco too.
it's
mean-
going to open a can of worms that
It is.
it's
And
going to be.
you may not like the answers you get once you open that can of worms.
Exactly, and that's what I'm saying. I mean, we survived for 20 years, and okay, yeah, I understand that it changes, but
Well, let's
we
start.
have
with-
to look at
Let's
both.
start by having the conversation with our insurance carrier,
Yeah,
and then we'll go from there.
Sounds good.
Okay.
All right, next up is item 6D. I'm sorry, 6C.
C.
Proposal for Summer Dreams Committee Charter and so we'll start off with charter. So I'm assuming all of these changes are indeed in red or crossed out. So why did we feel the need to change chairperson to chair? That's first two items, is changing the word chairperson to chair. Are we trying to solve a problem, or what are we doing?
Just trying to be consistent with the policy page too, because we say chair in one and chairperson in the other. Just a minor little editing, proofing. But if you want, we can keep it at chairperson.
Down under responsibilities, what's highlighted next is may not express opinions of a medical, political, religious, or social nature. So medical was added.
Because we've had some articles that come that are giving the medical advice to people, and we can't do that. We don't want to be liable if somebody takes somebody's advice out of an article and then it doesn't work or something.
So if somebody's promoting circuit training, or Tai Chi, or chair aerobics, or water aerobics.
No, we had
We can't have that in the summer?
we had a sample from an individual that their past history is medical, their past life was medical, and they wanted to give advice on a certain subject, but
Okay.
they didn't have any references. It's okay if they have references, and we say for more details, but we don't say it is suggested, or you should do this, or it's just to clarify for the submitters
Okay.
and covers us.
You know, I would think there's ads in the Summer Dreams about, from agents that sell medical insurance. And I think that's okay as long as they're not saying, I can get you better coverage that can cure you with this or that, or as long as they're not making claims that are specific to some kind of medical issue.
Yeah,
Correct,
but you know,
correct.
I was thinking of some recent things where, you know, there was, I can't remember whether it was Tai Chi or whatever it might have been, and just kind of explaining, you know, we have these classes now, they're held on certain days.
Right.
And here's some of the benefits of
Right.
doing this type of exercise. Would
It's-
that be not allowed anymore?
No, that's allowed. It's just more like if you're writing an article about a cancer treatment or something or whatever, and you're giving them, oh, I found this research and this is really good, and go visit here, because we don't want to put those kind of articles in. It's just not our practice, just like it's not our practice to talk about politics or religion. We don't want to make the people feel like something's being forced in on them.
Okay.
And those are four of the major things that can tend to open the can of worms in the community.
All right. Further down through the document, it says committees shall record minutes of all meetings and consolidate them in a monthly activity liaison report that shall be provided to the board liaison.
Why?
And you took off the association's
Well, the
general
monthly
manager.
report goes to the liaison. It's never gone to the HOA. Because
So how
it
do-
doesn't
How
get
do the
included.
minutes get into the,
The minutes do get recorded into the HOA.
so shouldn't it still go to the HOA general manager and the board liaison?
I would think so.
Yeah, I would think so.
Okay.
I would think you just simplify and say the minutes go to the HOA, period. You know, whether the liaison is just a pipeline taken from here and turn it, just the minutes are reported to the HOA and you're done.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Well, and as,
Just-
I'm actually their board liaison presently, but if I miss a meeting, you know,
They still put
we're all in unknown area. So, yeah, I think it should definitely go to the manager and the liaison at least.
Okay. And then since you're updating the document, in terms of office, if it's per the
You
establishing
want to change? Okay.
committee's policy, then you
Yeah.
can just refer to that policy rather than giving the details.
Well, those details have been there for, I don't
Yeah,
know
I
how
know. I'm
long.
just saying,
So
as long
we'll
as
just
you're updating
change
it,
it. Yeah.
Clean
We'll
that one
change it
up
to
at
the
that time
refer.
as well. Anything else for the charter?
No?
All right, move on to the Summer Dreams policy and guidelines.
This is an easy one.
Looks like just a date.
No, it's on the second page in the first paragraph. It's not a newsletter, it's a magazine.
Oh, yeah, I just saw that, yep.
Okay, so that's the only change on that?
Yep,
Okay.
that's the only thing.
Assume nobody has any issues. All right, thank
Thank
you,
you.
Jody. Okay, next up then is item 6D, Southern Pro fencing estimate for perimeter fencing repairs for approximately $9,600.
Jody's off the hook.
So Marie, you want to walk us through this?
Yes, sir. So if you can see on the page 21, there's a community map. The majority of our issues are in that back area. And I provided pictures of the different damages that are back there. And the reason we only have one bid is we have three fencing companies, but everybody is booked. And we have some owners along that designated fence line that are very upset that there are exposures in their backyard to the stuff that's beyond our fence. And so I've kind of held off until we have several issues to get it all done. And I try to do one of these fencing repair sweeps at least once a year. And I'm doing it earlier than later just because of that, because we have at least two very bad areas directly behind two homeowners. And so they've really asked that I try to get this taken care of. So, questions?
Yeah, Marie, in the quote I'm looking at, I see a 6-foot fence, which I guess is the height, and I see 144, I'm assuming that's feet, linear feet. Now, are we replacing 144 feet in total, or are we repairing 144 feet?
No, sir, this section is where we have a lot of old old trees that have grown into the fence. So all of this is replacement because we can't repair the fence once it's been warped or twisted or the poles cannot be brought back. So basically we're having to take the old damaged stuff out and then jet out further in those areas. Those trees do not belong to us. And I've tried to reach out in other areas and ask people to trim their trees behind us, but that's, we can work on that for years. And
No, I understand, but by reading that, I'm assuming that we are replacing with
Replacing.
all new
Yes.
144 linear feet of
Yes.
fence.
Yes.
Yeah, so the
Okay,
way,
the
I don't-
difference is, if
Tom,
we're repairing 144 feet, that would be an expense. If we're replacing, then it gets to the reserve section.
Correct.
Tom, I don't think it's 144 feet.
yeah, it is.
I think it's 144 6-foot panels is the way I read it, because $4,300 for 144 feet is crazy. It's got to
Right.
be. The item is a 6-foot section, and there's 144 of them, I believe.
I think
and
you're
if it's
right.
not, something's nuts with the
No,
number.
Okay, so Marie and I had a few emails exchanged on this. Okay, so the fence is a 6-foot high fence.
Right.
That's what the 6-foot is.
Or it's actually 144 times 8.
So 8-foot
Say-
long sections,
Yeah.
18 of them is the 144 linear feet of the pickets. So 8 sections of pickets, or
Okay.
8-foot long sections of pickets. There's 18 of those. So it's 144 linear feet of
Feet.
pickets. To go with that is 36 5x5 posts.
Yeah.
So if you say 18 sections, you got one post on each end, but it's continuous potentially in some places. So I don't know if 36 is the right number there. And then it says the bottom panels, there's 25 of those. So there's some bottom panels that are getting replaced rather than the entire fence section.
Okay.
So it looks like all along there are 18 sections, 8-foot-long sections being replaced, and then there's 7 additional bottom rails that are being replaced as well, for a total of 25 bottom rails.
So basically, we're replacing basically 144 feet of linear feet of fence.
Yes.
That would, to me, that would make it a reserve item.
Right.
Yes, correct. Correct.
Okay, it's not a repair.
No, sir.
Correct.
Okay.
You've got it. Replacement.
I just have one question, Marie, on page 23
Yes, sir.
and 31.
23?
So that fence that's up against that big tree,
Yep.
what's the game plan there? I
So
mean,
what they do is they bring those 2 posts forward about half a foot away from the tree, and then and it kind of makes, do you know what I'm saying? They have to box it in
correct.
there.
Okay,
Yeah.
so have
Okay.
we talked to the homeowners that own that lot to say, hey, you're about to lose a half a foot of, we're gonna bring that fence a half a foot
So-
into your property?
That particular one there is not necessarily behind a homeowner. That one there is out on one of our open
And,
areas.
okay, that's common area then,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, you see over here where we have a little, well, anyways, yeah. And
So most of it is between lots 706 and 724.
Right.
Because that whole, everything's highlighted in yellow there. Some of that is actually chain link fence. The yellow,
Oh, yes,
the
I'm
white
sorry.
vinyl fence doesn't start until
Right.
Right.
further down. So as far as the potential lot numbers that are being affected, 706 through 724.
that is correct. And 713 and 714 are the ones that have really serious issues behind them that are really asking for these repairs. I didn't identify them on the pictures, but I can do that for the meeting to give you, highlight them and let you know exactly the ones that are right behind those homeowners.
I think I looked, Jeff, a little bit yesterday, and I think that white vinyl fence actually goes a little bit past 724, maybe behind that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I
behind
knew it
that-
didn't go the whole way down, but I
No,
wasn't
I
sure.
think it goes behind that DRA, because I
Okay, so
think,
close to the green for number 6.
I think it's
Yeah,
closer to
it's,
the green,
it's.
but regardless.
It's just, the chain link fence ends just short of where the green is.
That's what I thought,
Yeah,
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
I'm still struggling with 144 feet, because if you talk about 706 to 724, that's, what, 16 lots? And every lot's, like.
No, but it's-
Yeah, I think
they're
they're
like
just
80
saying,
feet
this section
wide.
is fine, the next section over needs to be
It's not
replaced.
continue, yeah.
Or
It's
maybe
not
the next 2 or
continuous.
3 sections over need to
So we're doing it by individual
It's piecemeal.
sections, not a running.
not a running,
Okay, gotcha.
And some of them aren't straight across. Some of them, they have to jet out and get away from those trees. I mean, there's in order to try to not have the same problem again in a year.
Those trees are massive back there
Yeah.
behind some of those fences.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is it's not continuous 144 feet?
Yes, because that area from
Correct.
706 to
Yeah, so it
724.
may be 30 feet here,
Yeah.
50 feet here,
So
okay.
you're doing a couple of panels here and a
Yeah,
couple of
I
panels
understand.
there. Okay, it's a patch rather than a full replacement.
So one of the things, Marie, I had sent you a note on this, I looked at this Southern Pro Fence, they seem like a very reputable company, they seem like they do high-quality work. However, they didn't give us any details on the vinyl fencing, so we want to make sure we have the specs for what there are different grades of vinyl. We want to make
Yes, sir.
sure
Well, I'm
we get a
getting
good
those.
commercial grade.
Yes, I am getting
We
it. It
just
needs to
we don't want
match
the
up
big-
to
We
what
don't
we
want the
have.
big box grade.
No. We're getting, I'll get it for you and we'll have it in the packet. I've requested it from them.
Okay. And then, as you said earlier, you just can't find anybody else to give us a second quote.
No, they're out 6 weeks, 8 weeks, whatever. And I started on part of this at the end of last year. And like I said, I have those 2 homeowners that I wanted to get the best deal for our buck by doing the whole project together. And I just could not get people to come out and quote. They're just too busy. And so in order to get this taken care of, we reached out to them. They're relatively new, but they have a great reputation. So The labor's a little bit more intense because it's not just putting in a post and driving a straight line.
Yeah, if you were doing a new fence installation, the labor would be lower, but since you have to demolish a piece of this section and then rebuild
Yep.
it with new pieces,
Yep.
labor's running a little bit higher.
Yeah.
The only question, a couple of do we really need to replace panels with just the little, I'll call them bullet holes, for lack of anything
No,
else?
sir, he
Or
put
should
that,
we, or can they be like plug patched? or-
we're gonna put some putty in there.
I wondered
He
that.
put those on there because he wanted
Okay.
you to see that we do.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
I know there's some behind the DRA on 6.
yeah.
I was looking at those.
Yep.
You could see the holes. yeah.
Somebody's been shooting at the coyotes or whatever it is out
Pellet
there.
gun, whatever, yeah. But they, yeah, I was thinking they could just be.
I was thinking it was a rock from a lawnmower, but.
It could be. That's.
That's a possibility as well.
We're
very
just
good-
patching
very
those.
possible.
If I remember correctly, the full replacement of those fences is provided for in the reserve
Sure.
study.
Correct,
I-
yes.
but I can't have, I have
It
no
w-
recollection about when it's planned.
I looked it up this morning. It was pushed out to 2029. It was in the old reserve study for 25, 26.
Well,
Yeah.
but
It
we
got
we
pushed
do,
out.
Well, the
we
new
have
reserve-
phases for those.
It's all phased in, and I think
Phased.
2026, the new one.
No.
Well, the new reserve study is, right now, it's in first draft stage. We haven't
Yeah.
finalized the new reserve
Yeah.
study.
But the last reserve study pushed it out to 2029.
Okay.
So here's the thing is, I don't
looked it up this
ever
morning. I got it with me.
foresee, I hope, knock on wood somewhere, that the community would ever have to replace all the fencing all at once.
Oh, no.
So this is all phased in because what I do is I go around and try to do sections every year to kind of keep whatever. And this section here, we did some last year further down from there. But it really still needs some work, and so this is probably going to be, unless we have a problem, the only fencing work that'll get done this year is this particular phase or whatever.
What I think we might look at is if we're programmed to replace the entire fencing in phases over time, before you do something like this, we ought to consider, should this section be phase 1 of the replacement part instead of putting 10 grand in it, today and then replace it, 4 years from now? It seems, take a look.
But
And
that's-
maybe it is and maybe it's not, but we should look at it in that light.
So what I've always understood, and this is my experience in the past as well, is that we don't we repair and replace as we go. And then, eventually you get a whole section that's technically done. But it is a replacement. And so you bring in, now if we had a repair, which we've had repairs, last year we had a couple with posts got bent or whatever, that was a repair. That's different. This is sections
Well, and it
replacement.
would make no point to tear down good panels just to replace them.
Yeah.
That would,
But,
that's money
with the
wasted.
vinyl fencing, the big thing is the UV. It deteriorates over time.
Right.
So if you were to go out there and start tapping on the fence, if it starts chipping away, then to your point, it may make sense to
Just look at it.
just look at it from the standpoint, okay, these particular sections are broken. Is there anything else that it's, because of the UV deterioration, it's so brittle, the next time a tree branch falls out of the tree, it's gonna take out three sections because it's so brittle. So we just need to make sure there isn't more that should be done at this time, or is this adequate for now?
I'll make sure of that. We've walked it 3 times so far to
You
make
have already?
sure.
Okay.
Yeah, and Tony's walked it, and the fencing people have walked it, and so I already had my eye out on this area, but these 2 homeowners, like I said, 212 or through 213 and 14, something like that. I didn't realize it was as bad as it was behind there. That tree those
Well,
trees have done
And
some.
and you're right, I stopped in the street, so I didn't want to trespass, and look between the houses to verify your pictures, and you can see the gaps. So if you can see it from the street, I can only imagine if you're sitting
Right.
on your back patio staring at those gaps. Yeah, so so actually this, compared to replacing a whole fence, this isn't
Right.
a lot of money.
No, and,
If it solves the problem.
as we can see from the pictures, I mean,
Yeah.
it definitely needs some attention.
Yep.
Okay, so okay, if we move on to the next one then? All right, next up is United Landscaping estimate for mulch for the Florida-friendly garden.
go.
So actually, if you look at page 40, it's actually two areas. It's the Florida-friendly garden next to the bocce courts, and then there's a small bed there in front of the restrooms at the softball field that
Right.
is included in this as well.
Sounds like we have it solved for 1/10 of the price.
Yeah, and
I don't
If
have
you go-
yeah.
so the area that's referred to the Florida-friendly garden by the parking lot, in the summer of 2023, so less than 3 years ago, there was a project where some volunteers did all the work. They ripped out everything that was there. They put down the landscaping, weed barrier paper, put edging around, and then added the mulch. And that was for $1,000 of materials and then the volunteer labor to do it. So it seems like we should be able to do this for a lot less than the $2,000.
And we can certainly do that. So, there's some fabric parts that maybe need tucking in and all that, but we can still take care of the fabric and the actual bagged mulch, have it delivered. We can order it from our office and have them brought in. And I do appreciate the gardening club volunteering to do this work. This will save a great deal of money.
What, you know, George.
The softball, SGSA softball club will support that effort also. We'll help. We got the equipment now, so we'll help. Move
No place to
mulch,
store your
move stone,
equipment.
move whatever we need to do. We'll help get that cleaned up.
Thank you.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
That's very nice.
Just some comments on the quote itself, and when dealing with United, I think, you know, there's, for this tiny little project, that God knows how many different things are wrong with it. Brown shredded mulch quantity, 250. 250 what? You know, come on, what is it? You know, you have
Right,
to-
they're not the greatest at, it's 250 bags or 200 and, well, they're putting 3 inches down is what they
So
recommend.
it's typically 2 cubic feet per bag.
Yeah, but just in general, when they make a quote on something, tell you what the hell they're quoting. You
know,
know,
I'm
brown
working.
shredded, it could be 250
be
pallets, could be
250
250
cubic
bags. It's just
keep
in
working.
general, what?
Keep
Same-
working with them.
The other issue that I have is 8 for demo removal, presumably that's labor? That must be 8 hours of labor to do it?
Yes, that is
Clean up
correct.
the old stuff.
For landscaping at $73 an hour. I
The
was looking at
$73.50 sound a little bit high per hour for a labor,
Well, that's probably
landscape.
3
Oh,
guys
that's
or
3
something
times
like
rate.
that. Plus their profit.
But my
right.
point is, what the hell is it?
Yeah.
Is it 8 hours of labor for one guy or 8 hours? You know, the quotes are just non-responsive and non-informative. So it's almost impossible to take a reasonable analysis of what they're trying to do when they quote like this. They make no sense whatsoever. You know, the commentary there about putting the sheeting material, the fabric material down under a mulched area. I think that's quite questionable. When you put mulch out and it stays there for a number of years, the mulch deteriorates and becomes soil. And then you replace it with more mulch on top and go on. When you put that fabric down, it accomplishes nothing except, you know, reduces the ability for the mulch to do its normal deterioration process. I don't think there's, you know, any logic whatsoever to be.
They didn't quote any fabric. I was the
No,
one
It's
that,
already there.
But it's
In the
already there.
Florida-friendly area, it's
I'm-
already there. That was done
But-
3 years ago.
Yeah,
I would say
and
the
that- I
fabric's there,
I just
the
don't think that makes a whole heck of a lot of mistakes.
But I think at this point, we're not going to rip it out. We just throw new mulch on top of what's already there and move on.
And I hate to belabor this stuff, but I have one more issue.
Okay.
The heading of it says talking about using the landscape improvement as an account to charge this to. I think that's grossly incorrect. An improvement is something new changing, a bare area to a bed, or doing something, when you just have a rehabilitation of something that should have been maintained all along, and you're doing a catch-up, that's not an improvement. The planting of the sod behind number 18 green, that's not an improvement. That's replacing bad grass with good grass. That is pure and simple maintenance and repairs. That's good. That the whole concept of that line item in the budget was for the concept of improvements, new flower beds, changing this to that, a proactive improvement. That is not an account that should be used is to hide repair and maintenance expense.
Well, in this case, if that's the case, then we don't have any money for mulch
Right.
anywhere. My thoughts were that we have to add a line item for mulching the community in the future, because it's not included in the contract. And so this, of course, takes care of itself because it's nothing. It can definitely go as a maintenance type cost. But some other, when we come to mulching large quantities, that is not budgeted anywhere at this time.
It used to be part of the old landscaping contract, right?
Yes, it was. And we would pay monthly. At one time a year, they'd come and they'd deliver whatever.
So when that money was taken out of the new contract, we should have put it into the budget. Because we're still gonna do mulching in the community.
Well, my mistake was thinking that I could actually use some of that improvement money. And of course, that's a mistake.
We have the
But
finance chair.
Remember, of course, we get into this all of the time. A budget line item for any kind of discretionary money is not an appropriation. There's no vested use for that money. It's just a simple estimate from 15 months out over the period of the following year of how much the association will spend in a particular area. There's no vested funding for a particular project, and there's no vested funding for a budget item. The concept of that, the individual items as they arrive, say, are they a good project, bad project? Approve it, not approve it. But what's in that particular line item is no magic formula to say that there's money there. There's no money there. There's just an estimate there that was derived last August or September of what those projects would be used for, or that monies would be used for in the 2026. So, relying on what in the budget or that particular line item is a conceptual mistake.
So yes, sir, the problem is that I'm the one that starts the budgeting process, and so I will need to work a little bit closer with you in order to be able to get a better idea, because I had concepts from previous experience as to what things were used for. My error. This year, there is no mulch money.
Can I make a comment? Or
Sure.
can I add into this? I think that, Bill, when Finance Committee wrote landscape improvements, yes, there is no, quote, CRF money in there. I think that title of that account is actually landscape improvements / maintenance. Steve's out there, he might be able to help me if I'm wrong. And that does have a $40,000 balance. Or it was earmarked at 40,000 in the budget. I do not know what the balance of that would be today. But I believe that's the account that mulch would come out of today. So there is some money out there, if I'm correct.
I have to look, I don't have it.
Steve can help me with that.
All right.
Thank
Yeah, we don't need to hold up the meeting.
No, that's my understanding of what, so I believe there, and we have several projects today.
Right.
That may fall into that.
Oh, yeah, they're all the same.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
That's where I was coming from.
Here.
Uh-oh.
No, we need the people that are watching from home to be able to hear.
Okay, one correction. There is another account. It's 70219 maintenance, landscape and repairs. There's 25,000 in that. So we could work the two, one or the other, but
So there's two.
it's got to go in one or the other, Bill. I mean, it's got to go somewhere, or we're gonna
Right.
take up money from the community. Anyway, there is another one. We could add that to it, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
I would just suggest that these, the account for these is much better for that, the account that you just mentioned, Steve, clearly. Yeah, that's what it's for.
Okay, move on to the next item, which is item F, United Landscaping estimate for erosion repair at the pool chemical building for approximately $2,000. So on page 47 of the packet is the picture of the area involved. So this completely eliminates all the grass in front of the vinyl fencing, and it's hard to tell how far back up the roadway it goes. There's a pickup truck in the picture, and the orange cones there, it looks like it goes past that area as well.
That's the drain, right? The orange cones are the drain.
So first of all, is there any irrigation heads in that area at all? Okay, so there is one, and you'd say, so the reason why it looks like this isn't because of lack of irrigation? Is the head operational, even though there's a head there, does it actually?
The head, it's operational. Yeah,
Okay.
I think the biggest thing is that when the water comes out, when they're pushing the water out, it pulls along the edge there and causes the erosion of the soil. And you can see right in front of that, on page 47, right in front of the truck, you can see the sand. That's what the whole parking lot looks like anytime they backwash the pool.
We're getting chemicals coming out of there too.
But well, you are getting some chemicals, but remember, these chemicals are chemicals that you swim in as well. So they're not necessarily that horrible. The main thing is the amount of water and the amount of soil that's pushed out with the water. That's what we're trying to do, is trap that soil there.
So if you go to page 48, the picture on page 48, in between the two cones, you see a little small catch basin there.
Right.
That is a 1 foot by 1 foot by 1 foot catch basin.
Is that basically a dry well?
No,
It goes in, does it go anywhere?
Yeah.
no. So it comes, there's a pipe that runs underground from the, where the filters are, comes out of that room, goes underground, and it dead ends right at that catch basin. And as it catch basin, so, you know,
So the water comes out of that.
once you get about 7 gallons of water, 8 gallons of water, it's now gonna be overflowing there.
Right,
Because it's
yeah.
not a dry well, it
Yeah.
doesn't. So, the question is that the right place for that? Is it the right size, or should it be a bigger, true dry well?
Or should it be several to distribute along the fence?
Yeah.
To me, if you have one outlet that pumps a lot of water, you're better off maybe with 3 or 4 spots along that fence.
Yeah.
So it's distributed evenly across the rocks that we want to put there.
So this is, there's water flowing here whenever they do the backwash of the filters.
Yeah.
So I don't know how many gallons per minute comes flowing out of there, but it's, what's there right now, that 1 foot by 1 foot by 1 foot catch basin is not adequate at all. So it just kind of bubbles up out of there and just starts washing soil away and runs down.
Now, there's also diatomaceous earth in that
No.
water, no?
There used to be, because there were leaks, there were some holes in the filter pads for the diatomaceous earth. That's all been taken care of. There should not be diatomaceous earth.
So it should be basically just water.
Just, yes, it just pull water.
Jeff,
So my question would be, should there be 2 or 3 or 4 of those
do that?
drains along the fence to evenly distribute the water over that area?
My understanding is when this area overflows, and it just runs down into the main drain in the parking lot.
Right.
When the thing starts coming out of the pool, it comes out of a hose and then exhausts into the grassy area here and then overflows. Does it make any sense to look at why don't we get a longer hose with a fitting on it and have the damn thing just go all the way in the hose direct to the main drain and bypass all of this?
It would be
And put out a
across,
couple of cones while it's running and you're
yeah,
done.
it'd be across the driveway though.
Yeah, just put a couple
Yeah,
cones
that's fine,
up while
but
it's
you
running.
just put up, you know, if, when it's running, just put up a couple of cones and you're done.
As a fireman, I can tell you, they're gonna drive over the hose.
Yeah. But again,
There
it
was
doesn't hurt
an
anything,
estimate,
you know,
I think, at
Well,
one time.
that's what we put up
to
the
put it
the 50 cal,
underground,
yeah.
under the parking lot, but that's
Just saying,
costly.
Bill.
Yeah, the cost of boring was restrictive. It
I
makes
agree,
sense.
just put a temporary hose down. Even, it doesn't even need to go all the way down to it just needs to go onto the
To bypass
blacktop a
this,
little
yes.
ways so that it
Yeah.
flows over.
And then-
completely bypass that.
Okay, but it still leaves us, okay, what do we do with that area? So we address any future washout issues by doing the hose.
Right.
What do we do with the area in the meantime?
This
Do we
is-
put stone there? Do we try to put grass back in there? What do we do?
This seems like well, they drive over it, they kind of shortcut drive over it
Yeah.
all the time, so
Well-
grass is a wear item. And this is a much better proposal than the last time from Floralon. What is it, a third of the cost?
Yes.
Yeah, so. Oh, yeah, those boulders, yeah, I forgot about the boulders.
Well, I think my opinion is it's a good idea to remediate with the rock, but then to keep it from happening again, get a longer hose and go straight
Yeah.
into the main line. I think that would do really well. But I still have to address the issue along the asphalt right there where the soil is substantially below the asphalt, and that will cause rain and any other water that comes through there to go under the asphalt, and then that'll crack. And then that's a different issue that
Catch
then I'll have
basin
to
will get
pass on to Russ with the
his
asphalt
paving
people.
company.
Yeah.
Where are
So-
you gonna hook this hose up to?
The hose can go into, there's a big old giant drain
Across the parking lot.
that is in the asphalt that we would,
Yeah, page 51,
yeah.
there's a picture of the catch basin out in the parking lot.
Oh,
where
yeah,
that
there
would
you go. So you see that big drain?
That's where it currently goes.
Yeah.
It's just,
We gotta get it off the dirt.
we just gotta get it off the
Yeah.
dirt, off that area.
Well, only gotta be.
That's where it ends up anyway.
And if you have to,
Yeah.
you put a couple of cones there while that hose is on
Yeah,
the
just-
A
blacktop.
hose
Just goes
is-
on a couple
hose
feet.
is much cheaper than digging underneath and tunneling
Oh,
and
yeah.
making, yeah.
But I
And-
agree with Jeff, what do we do to fix this?
Well,
the
I think,
landscape?
right, the fixing
okay
is
with the
rocks.
Yeah.
And then, because you don't have to worry about sod erosion, you don't have to worry about people running over the sod if you put sod there. So the rocks is a good fix, and then I like the proposal of getting a longer hose and just emptying it out straight. If you notice, our biggest issue with stormwater and with water problems like this is going to be all that sand that goes into our stormwater drainage system, and that builds up. That's why over there on the 18th hole slope, we have an issue is because all the sand has come out and filled up some of those drainage pipes that now need to be cleaned out. So, but anyways, that's my opinion.
My question is still, where do you hook up the hose at?
So
Right now, there is no place to hook up a hose.
That's what I'm
That's
saying.
gonna have to be some modification done to put some type of
Tony
adapter.
can do that, I'm sure.
You know. So,
Are you talking about a fire hose, something?
It-
big?
yeah,
Okay.
Isn't there a short hose now that comes from the pump and it gets to get out in the grass there?
I thought there was, yeah. I thought I've seen it.
I thought there was
it is a hose.
Yeah, I think I've seen it.
yeah, I think there's.
I think whenever he's trying to adjust the water level, so after a rainfall and the water level's too high, I think he puts a drain hose out
Okay.
to drop the water level down a little bit. That might be what you're seeing.
Yeah.
All right,
Okay.
Okay,
Anyways, the stone's a good idea, I
yeah.
think.
I
gonna end
I
with that.
agree.
all right. Okay, next up is item G, which is proposal for erosion repair on the slope off of 154th Street Road behind hole number 18.
This whole project is convoluted a little bit and time sensitive,
Well, it's
because.
only been 3
It's
years.
been going on for 3 years.
Not real time sensitive.
Well, no, but what I'm saying is, so if we went with the proposal that Cypress says, he sent me out to a sod company. The sod company says they don't sell the sod until the sod is ready to harvest. That's very sensitive, because I gotta get in there, I gotta buy it before they sell out. And then number two, after they sell it to me, then I've got to get a logistics company to go pick up the sod, and they have weight restraints on how much weight and sod can be on each truck. And so they quoted considering they're coming from Ruskin, which is quite a ways away.
90 miles.
Yeah, they're 2,550. That's delivered. They take it off of the truck. They stack it wherever we want, all that good stuff. That brings it to $9,000. Now, the grass is special, and it's special grass, and that's why we have to spend that kind of money on it. And they would also put the guys, both United and Cypress, were talking about it. They would put some kind of fabric underneath in certain areas that have the most erosion, to have the grass roots go through that fabric. It's like I don't know.
A grid, it's
A
almost like a
grid.
grid.
Thank you. So it's a grid, the roots go through it, that keeps the sod on there. That kind of work would be done by in conjunction with our two landscaping companies in-house. So what we're doing is we're trying to save on the cost and bringing in the supplies, but having them do the work because they're already here.
Okay, so there will be no additional labor cost because it's already labor that's contracted
That
for.
is exactly right.
So it's free, so the install's free.
Well,
But his memo
That was one
doesn't
of my,
say that.
that was one of my questions. I have a lot of questions.
I think we looked at this a couple of years ago, and I think I remember seeing pictures where the slope is a little higher or greater. It's a grid that gets anchored into the sand, and then the sod grows in, the roots grow into
Correct.
that. So it tends not to wash away.
Yeah, but again, that's not spelled out in the quote. It may be
That
the
is not.
intention, but it's not clearly defined in the
Russ
quote.
has a bunch of questions.
And that's only where the slope is great enough to where, because it's sandy soil.
Yeah.
So it tends to, in a heavy downpour, it tends to rush the water to wash away some of the sand into the road.
Yeah. Good, Russ.
And some of that's not outlined in here. I guess this goes back to what Bill said. You know, it would be nice to have a single spreadsheet showing our options that we've been investigating, right? We've investigated grass, we investigated the junipers. I think a couple years ago, we even talked about maybe having a staged landscaping area there. Can we get some kind of a one-page review of what these are costing and what our options are?
we can, well, our estimates are all old now,
Well,
so.
but we got,
Use
we gotta
them as-
have,
Right, to start off with, use them as a baseline.
Okay.
yeah.
All right, we can definitely get that done. The idea here is Patrick, who is with Cypress, he just said, look, I can help you get the sod and get the sod here, but we can't do the work all by ourselves. I would need the help of United. And United said, sure, we'll help you with that. So, I mean, you want it laid out and you want it promised that we'll get the grass here if that's what you decide, and that then it will get laid out by our companies, correct?
Yeah, and as we talked about it, is there some type of erosion matting that goes underneath first, so all that needs to be spelled out.
So
Now,
then-
so to address some of the issues, so it's a multiple tier, it's not just one thing that's an issue out there. So we have, number one, we got the trees. So it's a highly shaded area. Supposedly the Citra Blue does very well in the shade areas. It's a grade of St. Augustine, whereas one of the other ones they quoted, I can't remember, I think there was a Celebration.
Celebration
Does very poorly in the shade, so obviously that's not a choice. But the Citra Blue, so the shade of the trees, at least this is somewhat shade tolerant. Then we have all the leaves that drop off the trees and accumulate there. They get out in the street, and the landscaping company then just turns around and blows them out of the street up onto the hillside there, and we end up with a mat of leaves over top the sod, and it kills off the sod because in addition to being shaded, it's also now has a canopy of leaves on top of it. And then the third thing is the cart traffic that goes across there.
So the cart traffic, we were gonna address that because Patrick said, look, I can put up the little posts with roping.
Yeah.
Keep that off of, you know, so that people can't go through it. My other complication that I want you to understand is, and everybody's debating what to do, but again, we have two landscaping companies. When you put a plant that is not grass in an area, then you have to decide who's gonna take care of it. And Cypress is grass people, golf course people, they're not plant people. So if you put something else, then that means that United would have to be in charge of this area. And then that's something that is not in their contract. If we put grass, Cypress can mow it at the proper level. And United, we're already working on the leaf situation. This year was really, really bad, and we had some major issues. We're starting to bag the leaves. They're going to be investing in a machine to bring it here to gather leaves during, you know, this season.
To vacuum and shred rather than blow it around.
Right, exactly.
I just can't see in that hill with a lawnmower going up and down to cut it.
It's not that.
I mean, that.
You think it's
you
too
look,
steep?
You right there, John, hold on.
You think it's steep?
I don't think it can be mowed.
Oh.
You look along the golf course and all the hills that we have there, they just deteriorate with the rain and everything. I don't think, the only thing that I think that could be done there is a garden type thing and rope it off. To try to put grass there and have it survive and be kept, I think it's going to be impossible with all the trees and all. My opinion. That's all that's the only opinion I have. I just don't think it's going to work with grass, with the shade and everything else.
I had a fairly long conversation with Patrick about it. I was down talking to him about some other stuff on the reserves. I think one of the issues may have happened there is that area has been kind of a political football. Who is it? Is it landscaper? Is it a golf course? You know, clearly it's on the golf course property. And what his theory was from looking at it is that it suffered from a lack of irrigation over a period of time. I want to say, well, hell, there's no irrigation there. Well, and look, there is in fact irrigation.
Yes, there is.
And he told me that it does in fact work. So, you know, if we put sod there or anything else there and it gets proper irrigation and the maintenance of the area falls where it belongs, wherever that may be, and presumably it's golf course because it is golf course property. It probably has a chance. To the cart traffic, I've been here 10 plus years. I've never seen a cart drive down there.
I agree. I agree. I've never seen a cart
have.
there.
I've seen tracks.
But
I've been in a foursome where I've yelled at the other guys in the cart, What the hell are you guys doing?
Yeah,
Get out of
I've
there.
seen them run across the top, but down by the street, I've never seen anybody down there because, for the most part, how do you get back? You know, on the other side where
But
you're
that's
going?
easy to rope off.
But
Yeah,
that's
it
easy
is.
enough. Yeah,
Yeah.
you can put a couple of barriers down there. That part should be easily handleable. And once you've invested the money to do whatever you're going to do there, we ought to protect it
Right.
with barriers or something.
well, we got the professionals that are saying it can be done, but I just have a question that with the
Yeah,
shade
I
and
think-
everything, and if they're willing to say, okay, this is going to cost X amount of dollars and we're going to keep it up and maintain it
At the
with
end of
the
this-
sprinklers and
End of
everything.
this discussion.
Yeah, when the landscaping planning group was looked at this a year or two ago, they had come with a proposal to plant certain kind of junipers
Yeah.
up there, which are, once they're in, they will resist
Yeah.
everything, and they take very little maintenance. The problem with the junipers versus the sod is the cost of that would be significantly more because the plant material's not too bad, but they've got to be planted. So the labor installation for the junipers would be a big deal. And as I remember, the number was, I don't know, 20 grand or something. How much?
26.
$26,000. That, yeah, so it's a horse of an entirely
Okay,
different color.
all right.
But that would solve the problem for sure, but yeah, it's an expensive
I think we
proposal.
beat this up quite a bit.
Yeah, so.
The only thing I didn't see, I saw Patrick's memo, I didn't see anything that, he said that United could help, and I hear Marie say United could help, but his memo says it does not, we can definitely prepare the site, and with United's help, we could probably get it laid.
So I do
And I
have,
don't see anything from United that says,
I have an email.
we can help.
I do have an email. I do have an email
So
where,
we don't want to run into an issue like we did with the, quote, cart pass. And suddenly we have a big bill for something that we didn't see coming. So that was my only thought.
Yeah, and the other thing related to this is the silt that's coming down, sand and everything that's getting washed down is going down into the catch basins there. So you were gonna get someone to come out, take a look at what it would take to get that jetted out. Now, we wouldn't jet it out until we had the solution in place, so we didn't get more silt down there once we cleaned it out.
And
So
then we need to dig that sand out as well.
Yeah.
right.
Well, and my last comment about that, I drove by it yesterday, and it hasn't rained in, what day did it rain last? Hard. And there's so much sand in that gutter. It takes 5 minutes to go through there, 15 minutes with a shovel and throw it back up on the
Well,
bank.
the problem is,
We leave it in the gutter though.
well, I don't know how many times Robert and Devin have shoveled that out.
Not enough.
Well, until you fix the problem, the hillside just keeps washing down in there.
And
You
I
gotta-
understand.
You gotta address the root cause, and then when you get in the DRA by hole number 18, there's a outfall
No, I know
that
what you're
is
saying.
pretty much plugged up now that needs to be cleared out. So
Right.
there's a clear channel for the water to flow rather than backing up all the way into the catch basin. And we've had, the last significant rainstorm we had probably about 3 or 4 weeks ago, 154th Street Road was flooded out.
I know. And
It was up over the curb, it was 6 inches of water in the street.
right, and the leaves block some of the drains, but
Yeah.
there's actually weeds growing in the sand in the gutter. In a couple of places. That doesn't tell me the gutters are cleaned out very often. Just thinking.
Yeah,
But anyways,
gotta figure out a way to keep the soil up on the hillside.
Russ
rather
is
than
gonna
the street.
ask for a 5-minute break, Jeff.
Okay,
Tom's asking for it.
okay.
I'm just passing it down.
All right,
passing the
so we'll
information.
move on to the next topic after a 5-minute break.
Thank you.
Because I got to golf.
Okay. Yeah, well, it's at 12 o'clock though, right?
Ba-dum.
Hello, Sir Russ. Yes. Yes. Good. I'm in a meeting right at the moment. Yeah, I'm gonna have to call you back.
'cause that would be golf. And I don't think the hill's too steep. Yeah, use the green grass, people. Yeah, keep my ball. If I happen to be able to, because, again, yeah. Oh, I've seen the tracks. I've never seen anybody. Yeah. Outside people. More the ropes are good. Uh-oh. Or Matt. I know you were going up there Monday. Oh, we don't bounce, Dan. None of us, we don't bounce anymore. Oh, man.
Okay, everyone, we're going to call the meeting back into session here. So next up is item 6H, proposed softball amenity changes. So Denny, George, whoever wants to come up.
Donnie Wyckoff, Lot 664. I'll start the conversation since I was here the last time on it. As you may recall, at the last time we were discussing this over a month ago, we were suggested to make some changes and as well to try and provide some guidance in terms of the frequency. What you should find attached to the cover sheet, which is the proposed amendments to the amenity policy, is a set of items that are identified as what our softball field maintenance is. We, in the meeting we had with Jeff and Dan and John earlier this week, there are some other modifications we will make to this. As an example, the trees outside the fences. Annually, you're going to look at it, but it basically comes down to an as required as opposed to every year it's going to get done. No different than what's being done on the property. The warning track areas, again, there is a longer-term plan that needs to be effected here to get everything to a proper level. But again, we would look at it annually and deal with what we need to bring in to bring it up eventually to being totally level. We're in an okay situation right now, but the back warning track is the one, and Jeff gave us some good input during the meeting about the potential product and how we end up using it. Infield maintenance material, over the years, there has been a blowing off of all the material, and so this is, again, something that we need to end up looking at on an annual basis. We don't think it'll take more than 4 years to get it right, but we're not trying to do it all in 1 year. What we're saying is to get it right and get it to the level it should be at to avoid the edging that you'll see between the infield and the outfield. Roughly 10 yards of material per year should be something we think about. So these modifications will be made to this particular schedule that was attached, because that was one of Marie's requests. Can we get some guidance on what you're talking about? Equally, the commitment that George and I made, and I think it's very easy to do, we will provide for you in your April decision meeting on this an outlook of what we anticipate to be the annual budgetary impact. Quite frankly, we would see it our obligation, if you were taking on some of these costs, to identify as part of your budget process, which comes in August, to have had a line item that says, well, what are they talking about? I don't personally think it's going to be much more than $10,000 that we're talking about. And if you look at over the $100,000 that the softball organization has continued to invest over the years to maintain this facility, I think it's only appropriate that some of that burden fall off of the softball group onto a amenity that is really a Summer Glen amenity. And so with that, I can entertain questions or further discussion.
I think one of the things I had mentioned to Jeff and other members of the board is that we create a specific line item expense for repairs and maintenance designated for the softball field to assist in the budget process and also the track. We do have an account number, a landscape account for the field, which basically is mowing. And that's where we put the cost to mow. But that doesn't include anything like the gravel alongside the left field or the right field line or the back and so forth. So I think to go along with anything that the board approves, we need to have a specific line item account going forward. So we budget for those items and we're aware of what those items will be coming up. You know, I think that's absolutely important.
Right, and I believe the softball organization owes you, the community, input to that line item with specificity.
Great. Yeah, as we met on
Monday,
yeah, with George and Denny, Randy, you know, we talked about some of the things on this list are what would be more considered community improvements. It's something over and above what we already have, in particular the warning tracks as far as switching that over to the red brick, crushed brick, if that was something that would be done in the future. That's not an ongoing annual maintenance item. That's a one-time community improvement, and then from there it's just regular maintenance. So this list is right now is a combination of things, potential improvements as well as annual maintenance. And Denny and George said they're going to work that up and have a budgetary number as far as what they think would be the annual recurring maintenance costs, so we can plan for it appropriately going forward in future budgets.
And our commitment was that we would provide that guidance to you as early as your decision meeting for the April meeting, but clearly we'll refine it and work with you as part of the budget process.
Very good. Any questions, comments?
What's the warning track right now? It's not the crushed red brick. I know Randy has expressed possibly changing that, but we also know that's very expensive.
Well, the current area we refer to as warning track, John, is both the left field and right field sides and the rear.
I meant the material.
Yeah, well, that's part of, we'll take the input that Jeff was good enough to have looked up.
Oh, okay.
To take that into consideration. What we got put in on the left and right field was something which what I would call more dirt product. To
Right.
just get it up to a level close to the turf,
Right.
not
is-
where we'll end up.
Right, well, obviously, a dirt product is a little bit less money than crushed red
Correct.
brick.
And that's part of what we
Because
need to.
we, as you know, I had concerns with the money going
Yep.
down the road, and I think you've addressed that well, but we always have to keep an eye on that ball, the money.
Hey, we do too.
To Tom's point, I agree. I champion the fact that we ought to have the line item, and I think we ought to have, like we discussed on Monday, possibly sub-line, line items. Steve doesn't know this, but his assessment on the dugout benches just came across my email, and it looks like he's recommending us taking funds from the reserves for the, quote, dugout line item and the bleacher line item, and I think those reserves that are in there, the money that was allocated in those for those particular line items has nothing to do with the bleachers themselves or the dugout benches, but the shed roofs. I could be wrong, but I think we need to delineate, in a little bit more detail. To John's point, we had, when the softball outfield was replaced, the warning track and the warning tracks on the side created, and the warning track on the outfield, along the outfield fence was remediated. They put turfus down there. Turfus is pretty damn expensive, and it's not permanent. Red brick is almost as expensive and would be more permanent.
Okay.
Yeah, I think,
So, my
I
question,
think we
you-
got to be careful what we call an improvement as opposed to maintenance. For example, years ago, the Softball Association donated the scoreboard. And then it became our responsibility, and we have it as a reserve item.
Correct.
But you have to be careful of improvements separate from maintenance.
Correct, we understand.
So you'll have that all for us for the next monthly meeting?
We will
And-
have a budgetary estimate for you and a refinement.
And you'll
of the
know what's
document.
going to go in reserve and what's going to be, how it's going to be set
I
up?
don't, I'm
You'll
not going to
have
commit
some-
to where it gets parked. I
Right.
would rather identify, these are the sub-elements that we think are necessary for next year. I will let somebody else determine whether it goes to reserves or expense.
Okay,
That's beyond my pay grade.
thank you.
Okay?
Thank you.
Anything else? No? Okay, we'll move on next to diversified tree trimming proposal. So Marie, you want to?
Yes, sir. So we've got, by the annex chemical building, we have these weird little stick pines that are now just very long sticks. And so they're really not viable trees anymore. They first really bad wind and these things will go down on our fence, on the neighbor's fence, or even on our building. So we are proposing to get those removed. There's 6 little pine trees, and I did take pictures.
So page 72, you can see 4 of the
Yeah.
6.
And then 73's got
Yeah.
two more.
I'm in the wrong business.
There's the same with 2.
Yeah, so the branches have
a close-up.
fallen and
You're right.
broken some lattice work and other things on that fence. So I'd really like to get rid of them to protect our fence and our building. And then we have the trees over our V Park. We always do a nice trimming on those to keep that fence cleaned up. And so that's just a maintenance proposal there for regular yearly maintenance on those. The third item is one that I didn't highlight, but I wanted you to be aware of. And there's still a great deal of debate. Owners from the cottages and the arbors keep coming and asking me to clean out the back fence and to clean out their trees. They're saying many of them have lived here a long, long time and that the trees were always taken care of on a regular basis. but the cost to be able to go along the back fence and then take care of all of the materials coming over the fence and trim some of the trees that are causing issues back there is $15,000 according to our regular tree guy. I only have 25,000 in my particular budget for tree trimming. I know what you're saying, but what I got to keep a number in my head. Yes.
Remember, of course,
Yes.
anything that's done unique to the arbors is paid for by the arbors.
We've had this discussion.
You know, if I have a tree in my backyard that has a problem, I have to pay for it, as is the case with every other individual property owner around here. So that if anything like that exists in the arbors, unless you can find something in the documents that says something different, if it's unique to the arbors pays for it. They pay for it as a group as opposed to individually, but it's just like the roof on their place or the painting on their buildings or trimming the trees in their yards. I believe strongly that's their responsibility, not the HOA's.
So the HOA trims along the perimeter fences. So I could have the perimeter fence cleaned up, but then not have any of the trees addressed. Is that correct?
What are you talking about?
The perimeter fence behind the arbors, our vinyl fencing behind the arbors has encroachment from behind them coming in, that stuff that's coming in. So I could have the landscaper come and go right along that back fence.
No. I thought
Well,
we did that last year.
It can be done, but so there's vinyl fence, so all along the back road, going out to the back gate. All the houses that are on the right-hand side there. There's vinyl fence behind there, there's trees along there. If they want those trees trimmed, it's individual homeowner's responsibility to have that tree trimmed, not the HOA's responsibility.
Okay, so.
In the case of the attached arbors, there's a little bit different there. They're not part of the common area. They are now part of their own little subgroup of maintenance. So just like Bill said, the roofs, the regular, there's a separate reserve account for arbor roofs and painting and things like that. If it's gonna be done, that trimming's gonna be done, it's gonna be out of just those homes, not out of the 1,024 homes. So that $15,000 isn't spread out over 1,000 homes, it's spread out over 25 homes or whatever.
Right. We've had this discussion.
We have
numerous
had
times.
this discussion, and the arbors owners keep coming back and back. We need to have another arbors meeting, once a quarter is what they wanted, we'll have another. I did want to put the estimate on here to show them what the cost would be to do this work. Anyways, so, and you see, I didn't highlight it, so it's not something that you know.
I understand.
All right. So then we've got the trees by the RSO and the parking lot going into the restaurant and golf course. So you've got that whole entrance there and then all the way kind of like turns over. So you can see right there where the red, this is page 71, you can see where the red golf cart is and you can see all those trees. I've got light posts that are stuck inside the trees now that have a hard time turning off because the sensors don't work because there's too much tree debris. And then around that bend, there's, if you count them all up, there's a total of 14 trees. And so these, I'm recommending a trimming of, and that would be $6,300. So if you look at all of the highlighted items, this is the tree trimming that I am proposing for the common areas.
Can I ask why you only have one bid for tree trimming? Are they the only company in the Marion County that trims trees?
No, but they tend to be the one company that comes out here a lot and does really good pricing for us. They do a lot of good pricing for the owners. I do have a couple of other tree companies, but I believe that this gentleman here has been doing the tree trimming here for at least 12 years or more. So he's the one that we've always gone to first. And he's consistently better and consistently more affordable.
I The
need to see the
RSO
bids.
trees, didn't we trim those last year?
So if you look at the pictures,
Yeah.
no, we did not. So when we did palms and all of that, and we did the trees on the backside. We're not talking, where the crepe myrtles are over by the post office, on the other side of the post office and all. So this back area, we did some trimming here. We didn't do the trimming down there. We just never got to it last year. United Land did trim a little bit so we could hold off and do this year. So they did trim a few things. But if you have the opportunity and you're driving through there or walking through there, just look up and you'll see our lights are just totally inside those trees. So we need to try to take care of that before a big storm comes and we get into other types of situations.
I think, Marie, what John was concerned about, and so am I, is when I look at all the bids from Diversified, they always include a lot of zeros, which means that the numbers always seem to be rounding up. And we,
We should get more than one.
we got to make sure that we're policing their honesty and their quoting process, because when I look, I see 2,500, 2,000, 15,000,
I've got some good
6,300.
landscaping. I got some good tree trimming
Yeah.
people, and I can call them out and get estimates. The biggest thing is that because this guy has been used so much in the past, the people that come in now are going, well, why am I going to give you something? You're not going to choose me. He's always the one that's done it. And that's what I'm encountering. But I will call them out, and I
Well,
will get estimates.
I saw a tree, I saw him cutting a palm tree near your house the other day, a different company.
Yeah.
Conrad,
Conrad.
Yeah, Conrad Tree Service. Will is the son.
we need to
He's done good work
Yeah.
for me in the
You know,
past.
For
so-
smaller projects, but when we have a cluster of projects that over $25,000, worth having a second quote.
Okay, I'll get you a second quote from Conrad. Do you want a third? I can get a third.
Well, I think we should get as many,
All
at
right.
least minimum of 3 quotes is usually our.
If
our
I'm able to get you 3
preference.
quotes, can we go ahead and then add this to the agenda for the meeting then? Because I'd like to get it before the storm season. if
No,
we
I
can.
understand.
Okay,
Typically, if you have 2 quotes, if you can send it out to 3,
Right.
but, if as long as you have at least 2 quotes and they're relatively close to each other, you don't really need a third. But if you got quote number 1 is here and quote number 2 is over there, then I'd definitely get a third quote because they're so far apart.
Well, there's enough tree trimming companies, I would think
Yeah.
it'd be easy to get 3 quotes. Which would be standard, kind of a standard practice,
And
I
then,
would think.
something just keep in mind for future reference. I mean, we got a bunch of dead trees in the community, and if you go along the golf course, there's a lot
Yeah.
of dead trees on the golf course. At some point, we're gonna have to address those.
Well,
well, are the trees on the golf course my responsibility to address? I thought we had a landscaping company on the golf course that addresses the dead trees.
Not for removal of trees. That's not part of the contract.
yep. And we get
Okay.
lightning strikes every year.
All right, then I will get with Patrick and we will address that because.
And maybe you could bring in, I hate to spend all the money in one clump, but you might get better pricing if you know how much work you're gonna do.
Sure, okay.
I don't know.
Not a problem. All right, I'll work with Patrick from the golf course on getting those additional trees and get some more quotes.
And a little spreadsheet of comparisons, so it's easy for us to look at.
And the
Russ
6,
wants a spreadsheet.
if we
Then
do
it's
this-
easy.
If we do decide to take out the 6 pine trees over by the golf maintenance building, DRB needs to take a look at it and give their blessing as far as where replacements need to go? Or
I don't-
are those exempt from replacement?
They're just pines.
They can make that a judgment, yeah.
And, well, no, we will go through DRB. I just, I don't know that there is room. There should have never been any trees in that
Well,
particular
that
area.
doesn't, replacement tree doesn't have to go in the exact same
Right.
spot. It could,
Yeah.
if there's a need somewhere else, we can do that.
Uh-huh,
We do replacement on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah.
okay.
It's not needed.
All right, sounds great.
And some of these trees,
Yeah. These are trash trees.
Okay, moving on then. The Eco Lab, maintenance supplies, potential vendor change. Currently, we use Cintas, so Marie's been working with Ecolab for coming up with an alternative proposal.
So if you look at your sheet, thank you, Kevin. At the very top of our expenses, you can see we chose the month of July because it's a very busy month and we have a lot of grandkids and people visiting and all kinds, so that's usually a high month. And we went by line items, so we did a sample month, we came up with the total, then he went in and actually looked line item per line item at toilet paper, paper towels, hand soap, all the different things, put them on there for the month, and it came out to the same total. If you compare that with Ecolab, first of all, we're paying for our dispensers right now. They say we're not, but we are because it's on the bill every month. And they're not very good-looking dispensers either. And we have quite a few of them all over this property. So we want to get away from renting stuff that can easily be purchased or donated by our new company to us, and we replace only when it breaks. And so when we did the comparison on a July to what we think we would spend in the same July down with Ecolab, you're getting the 1742 compared to the 894. Now, they have a company called Veritas, and Veritas is the supplier that, because Ecolab has warehouses, but somebody has to get that stuff from the warehouse here, and that's where Veritas comes in. Veritas will bring out all of our dispensers. One initial installment, we have a very long list of those. We took a survey. They are, anything from the gel dispensers for antibacterial gel to soap, towels, whatever. We do want to start replacing some of the paper towel dispensers in the bathrooms with at least one blower type of dispenser to try to cut back on the paper products that we use, and it'll be a lot cheaper that way. So we kind of sent them an estimate, and they said, you let us know how many you need. Once we have an agreement, there is no contract. Our agreement is if they bring on the dispensers, we would agree to have Veritas bring in the supplies that we need from Ecolab. And if we're not happy with them, boom, we're done. Give them notice, they're out of here, and they don't take anything. Right now, we have provided a tentative notification to Cintas, and they're going to have to come and take all the stuff. So we want to make sure that when we do, if we do, pull the plug on this, that we want to have all of the replacement products. And they'll come in, they'll replace with their new stuff, and then they will have training for our cleaning folks. Their products are cents, just a few cents per use rather than an entire, there's a dispenser that's in this area back here near the kitchen. And that's the way that mop water is supposed to be dispensed. You mop water, you push the button, it dispenses the liquids, whatever. Their products are hospital safe, university safe. They kill tons of germs, and you need fewer and fewer products. Compared to right now, if you go to the maintenance room, you will see easily at least 12 different types of products in there, and we don't need that many. So the idea is to save on cost, but higher impact on cleanliness, odor, and better performance.
Yeah, Marie, one thing, I've been involved with maintenance contracts and maintenance B2B type business. Price obviously is important, service is important. But one thing that's, I think, important we could not get from Cintas is usage. And I look at the bills, and I swear that we buy a lot of mops, we buy a lot of things that seem to be every single week. And the only way to try and manage that is to get a quarterly usage report by SKU. I don't necessarily care the price, I care by SKU. So if we're all of a sudden buying 200 mops every month, something's wrong, because things tend to walk. And if you
Yes,
think
so-
that we're in a great community, people
There are
love
sticky
to take
fingers.
stuff home, I
Yes.
could tell you.
You want my 6 mops back?
I want it.
There are sticky fingers, but, so here's the deal is Cintas will come in and bring you a mop whenever they come. And we don't necessarily need a mop whenever they come. So this particular company, Ecolab, says, you don't need to buy mops from us. You can buy mops cheap from, Amazon and buy the products that you need. And when that mop gets worn out, then you buy a new mop. Why are we gonna rent you a mop or keep on charging you? I looked up at this cabinet back here and there were like 4 mop heads up there and that aren't even being used. They've been there for the last 6 months. And I'm like, why do we have those? We paid for those at one time and we're not using them. So the other item is that then we're not going to, in the change out, they will provide line item per line item what they bring in, and they will give us anything that kind of report that we want when it comes to monthly. But we will have their deliveries done where our maintenance manager can actually check off and say, yes, we received this, and not say, oh, well, that's a box full of whatever. No, I want to see what's in there. I want to see what we're paying for, and that's the situation. It's a situation that's out of control right now, and we need to tighten the purse strings on that and get it back into control.
I think it's a good idea.
Easier, better, and half the price.
Yeah, it's a win on all
No-brainer.
levels that we've analyzed by meeting with these guys, looking at the Cintas contract. So, yeah, I don't think we can go wrong with going with Ecolab and see how this goes.
Okay?
I don't think we need a board vote for them to change vendors for buying supplies.
Only if we have to sign a contract, but it sounds like we don't have to sign a contract, so.
But we do have to cancel the old contract.
Yes,
And
yeah,
I've
so
got-
that's, okay. So we'll have to vote on making the transition because we're voiding out a contract. Okay, last up on the list is United Landscaping entrance planting proposal for approximately $2,000.
Do we know how often these plants have to be rotated, or
They don't.
is there a plan involved?
Yes.
Is it every quarter,
No.
every?
No, this is
These are
one
permanent
deal.
plants, permanent plants that will last for years. Of course, Mother Nature's Mother Nature, so if we have some kind of terrible event, I mean, they could be uprooted or they could get fried or whatever, then that's a different story. But these are plants that are supposed to be hardy enough for this temperature. And so I gave you the colors so that you could see the effect that they would have at the front. Now, I had some homeowners come up and say, well, we want, this and this and this. Those are called annuals, and those annuals die out and you have to replace them every 3 to 4 months. That's what we had before. And people would get upset with me because the previous landscaper would come in and remove plants that were not dead, and then they were like, but you're taking out things that aren't dead, and I'm like, ah. So right now, the plan is to eventually get all Florida natural native plants into our landscaping that will have impacts with flowers and leaves. I'm sorry, is that you? Yep, and that way, saving money and replacing plants over and over and over again.
I want to say, go ahead.
This quote we have for $1,900, how long should we expect those plants to last before we have to do a major replacement? Is it 3 months, 6 months?
Years.
Should be years.
What we're doing, what the proposal is to transition away from the annuals and going to perennials, which come back every year.
Okay.
So, if we have a major freeze and it kills a whole bunch of plants, okay.
I'm
that's a
assuming
separate
that
issue.
the winter is over with for now, for this season, I would hope.
Yes.
That if we go with perennials, that this should cover us for at least 6 months
Oh, more.
No.
or more?
Years.
Okay.
Years.
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 Yeah.
I just want to say something. I've been in on these United Landscape meetings, and this Andrew, their people are, their leaders are by discipline. So this gentleman, Andrew, really knows his stuff, you know, and the grass cutting guy and the edging guy, and I mean, they all know their stuff, right? Having United come in and do this, these guys are on a whole different level compared to what we're used to and what we've been dealing with in the past. So I'm very confident in these folks, and it is a replay, it's an annual, so
Yeah.
then it's, you know, we save money in the long run. We're getting a whole nother level of competence with these folks, and it's refreshing, to be honest with you.
Yeah. You want to sign your name here for us?
Yeah, I can do that.
Hey, Tom, if Russ is happy, I'm happy.
Russ, I'm writing down here, Russ says okay.
I'm just putting and I think Bill's been in some of those as well. Have you been in?
Okay, so question I have is, the main area they're talking about is all the way at the very front, right on 20th Avenue, where they've dug out everything right by the flagpole there. And then,
So they're coming in from the very area on the front at 20th, and they'll go all the way through, all the way to where you have plantings on the other side of the gate guard shack. So there's a small tree right now that we're not sure if it made it or not. We loved it, and it looks like it might not have made it, but it's up there. So there's an area that's like a semicircle, and if you notice, some of these plants that we already started to plant in there last year are now coming back after the frost. So we're getting a lot of good stuff coming back.
okay, so around the oak trees then, what they're proposing, if I'm reading this right, around the oak trees, they're planning on ripping everything out that we did.
No, they're going to transplant.
Well, no, that's what I'm saying. They're ripping it out from underneath the oak tree, and they're gonna transplant it off onto the sides.
Yes.
So all those plants that were planted around the oak trees will be repurposed. The ones that are viable will be repurposed.
The azaleas that are there now and the Dusty Miller that we transplanted last year from the annuals that has survived through the winter, they're planning to take those plants from around those two large oak trees and moving them to the exit gate and the entrance gate on each side that right now are not doing well. They did not do well with what was put there last year, did not recover from the winter. So they're going to fill those in with those azaleas, which you can see in the neighborhood. The azaleas have done very well through the winter. And the encore that they're talking about here are a very hardy 6-zone to 10-zone plant, and they bloom 3 times a year. So they will bloom in the spring, the summer, and the fall. So that will replace the annual blooming that we've had to put in there 3 times a year. This azalea will pick up that blooming, and then
So
it'll
where
be.
are those, so it shows 5 of those. Where are those 5 gonna go?
That's going to be in the flag, where the flag
Where the
bed
flagpole
is.
is, okay.
Yeah, that's going to be a triple bed of chocolate loropetalum, and a yellow ligustrum, and then a red azalea in the center, so that we have a triple color there that should maintain year-round. The azaleas, when they're not blooming, they're still giving that green color, so they don't go to wood. So we stay away from that woody look that we get in the wintertime. We're trying to avoid as much of that as we can.
The azaleas that are currently there around the trees right now are a smaller variety, and they need more sun. And so our previous landscaper put those there, but those need to be moved to an area that gets more sun so they can really bloom and do really well. Now, they only bloom once a year, but they're always very green and luscious. So one good thing to say is not too many landscapers are willing to replant.
Yeah.
And these guys are willing to reuse the materials that we already have and try to put them in an area that is better suited. So all of this is going to be for the front end. It's all going to be that entrance area right now that is needing some attention.
Does it include fertilizing?
Oh, yes, sir. So Our landscaping contract includes fertilization, so they plan on removing the smaller azaleas, moving them, and then fertilizing them with specialized azalea fertilizers for the blooms. And right now, we're already talking about the fertilization and the treatment of pre-emergent on all of the arbor's properties and our common areas. So we do have weeds, but they got to be treated, and that's part of their agreement to do that.
Yes, I think the secret of perennials is if you want them to bloom, if they're blooming shrubs, you got to fertilize them a lot.
Well, and you also have to have mulch around them in the wintertime to keep those roots warm in the wintertime so they come back in the spring. The idea of the perennials is to do that. But you have to have the mulch in place as well to keep those roots warm during the winter. The azaleas on the front that Marie was talking about, the Encore azaleas take 4 hours of sun, and they will get that with that morning sun there in that flagpole area, and then they'll take a dappled shade the rest of the day, which they will get by the sun going over to the west. So they should do well there and give us some nice color and take place of annual color.
What were their comments on the variegated ginger? Because the variegated ginger is along the roadway on hole number 11 there. It has not done well. Granted, we've had very severe winter this winter, but I believe Cypress replanted some of that, or was
Right.
it, I don't know, it might have been ABM at the very tail end.
It
of
was
their time.
ABM.
ABM at the tail end. So,
Right, so the
through
variegated-
we've had 2 winters where that's gone through and it's not done well
Right,
either
so
winter.
the variegated ginger can even bloom, believe it or not, and have flowers, but it has to have a certain amount of shade. And that particular variegated ginger is in the wrong place. They're gonna move that as well. So when we talk about the things that are not working in a certain space, they will move it, put it in a space that works to fill in all the gaps
Okay.
where we're taking
They're gonna
things
move
out.
the stuff on the golf course?
Well, so the golf course, let me
That's what
just.
Jeff was talking
Well, but yes, but let me just be honest with you. The golf course does not take care of plants. It's what I've been trying to tell you. So when you come in the community and you turn, was it on 13th there? That the mulch that got put there was mulch put down there by United. The trimming that was done of the roses was United. There's a tree blocking there, the people that will remove that bush that's blocking the view, that's gonna be United. Because golf does not take care of plants, nor do they have the capability of fertilizing plants or any of those things. So even though it's not in their scope, they've been doing it because they want it to look good. And in
Who's
this,
they?
United.
Are they, so, to Jeff's question, I'm creating a question for
Yeah.
Jeff. Coming in past the gate, and we're on a different topic, obviously.
No, it needs to be removed.
Those gingers, is United gonna take care of that now?
So no, they'll remove them and move them to another area, and Patrick will address that area. They're working on it together, which is
Okay.
what I wanted, hand in hand, working together to get the community to look at.
And I understand, because to Jeff's point, that has not,
Yeah.
It's not fared well at all.
not fared well at
that
all.
in there.
It-
No,
I
I
went by there Tuesday and I thought, ooh, that's ugly.
Right, no, yeah, so they'll remove those that are there, because they're not gonna do any better there. There comes a
Okay.
point in the day when they get
They
way
were
too
ugly
much.
in the first place.
Well, there you go. They'll look much better and much lusher, and they will actually bloom. They have big spikes with dangly flowers
Oh,
on them
wow.
when they're in the correct
Okay.
space.
Yeah, so that was my original question, is at the base of the oak trees a good place for them? Because that's what's being suggested here.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah, we're hoping so.
All right.
Oh, don't say that.
Okay, that wraps up the agenda items. Next up, director input. We'll start on this side. Bill, anything?
I've had too much already. I'm
All
done.
right. Bill?
Looking forward to how the social committee moves forward with the show they're putting on and a dinner. And I'm sure we've got enough lead time, or they have enough lead time to remedy if they choose to move that direction.
I'm ready.
Oh, that's right.
Dan?
Nothing, thank you.
John?
No.
Russ?
Just one comment. Murph and I were out this morning with the asphalt restoration folks on the emulsion. We showed them the RV park, the softball, in front of the softball, some repairs that need to be performed in maintenance area, and then emulsion of phase one. So he's gonna come back with some quotes, and then I'll get it to Jeff, and we'll get it to a workshop. Okay.
Thank you.
I'll try to keep it brief.
Okay.
Over the past couple of weeks, Kevin and I have been communicating with Acrisure and their insurance people. They have elevated us to their corporate team because of the size of our operation and the amount of our premiums. Things change over the years, Dan, and some of it we have control of, a lot of it we do not. I can tell you back in when I first got on the board, our premiums for insurance were maybe $60,000, $70,000, $80,000. A couple of years ago, it was $279,000. Last year, we got a break. It was $190,000. What they did is they supplied Kevin and I with a questionnaire, 9 pages of questions. And believe me, there's a lot of questions. And what they do, the answer is not, will they not cover it? Yeah, we are covered it. The question is, how much are we going to pay to cover it? And it's all about risk. And if you ask the question, some of them, do we have a beauty shop? Obviously, we do not. Do we have a private beach? No, we do not. Do we have a marina? Do we have horseback riding? Do we have a hunting preserve? Do we have watercraft? I mean, these are the questions that affect how much the underwriters will rate you.
Right.
Again, there's 9 to 10 pages of questions. Some of it is, do we have waivers from everybody where we should be getting waivers? Are we using people with insurance coverage, like we do with the restaurant, like we do with the vendors and so forth? All those things affect what somebody will charge us for the risk, okay? It has nothing to do with as much with claims, although claims have an effect, and of course we've had some issues. But I can tell you, years ago, our premiums for liability, which includes the various levels of liability and officers and directors, was $40,000, $50,000. Last year, that was $140,000. The year before, it was almost $200,000. It's all about risk. So what'll happen is after this policy gets processed, I've requested that the risk people come in and talk to people about how we can control risk, because the only way to lower premiums, or at least manage premiums, is to manage the risk. Yeah, will they cover this, Dan? Will they cover that? Absolutely. But you're going to pay for it. And the more risk you can pawn off, like if the restaurant, we have several $1 million worth of coverage on tag. When we use an outside vendor like Pasta Fair, they have to supply us with a certificate of insurance. All our vendors, whether it be United, whether it be Cypress, all those have insurance policies that name us as insured. So the more we can limit our risk, the less we will pay going forward. And Florida is a hotbed of lawsuits. Just watch TV or look at the billboards, and they're getting worse, not better. Okay? And so we have to be proactive and go out of our way to make sure we're doing the best we can to limit our risk that we can promote to the underwriters. If not, we just have to be prepared to keep paying. And if people want to know why our monthly dues are going up, a lot of that has to do with insurance. Okay, last year we had a benefit, it went down by $80,000. The year before it was up by over $130,000 increase. Everybody pays for that, okay? So that's something we have to look at and have to address. We have to learn to manage the risk and be aware that what worked years ago is different. The environment is different today. And we have to be able to operate in today's environment because Florida is a hotbed. I'm sure other states are just as bad, but Florida is not a great insurance. Just look at your car insurance or your home insurance or whatever, okay? So it's limiting risk. And Kevin and I will try to keep the board up to date on what we can do to limit our risk and have people come in and communicate with us on what we can do.
Okay, thank you. All right, next board meeting, April 9th, and the workshop's tentatively scheduled for April 23rd. With that, motion for adjournment?
I'll move, we adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say no. Meeting is adjourned. I'll open up the floor now for homeowner comments.
Sue Rodriguez, Lot 819. As I was coming in today, I noticed I don't know why, all of a sudden just noticed a tree that if you take the sidewalk to the RSO building where the handicap door is, the double door is going into the RSO building, there is a tree on the left side of the sidewalk that is virtually above ground now. It's a large tree. All of the roots are above ground. It's uplifting the asphalt, uplifting the sidewalk. And when we're calling tree folks in here, we really ought to have them take a look at that tree. I would determine that tree needs to be removed. It's causing too much root problem there on a hard surface and for safety issues of people using that sidewalk and the pavement or the parking lot. So I see that as a problem tree.
Thank you, I agree. In fact, the concrete was repaired there, and it's already lifting it up and cracking it.
And the asphalt's lifting
And,
now, too.
oh, the asphalt's being torn
That tree
apart.
really needs to go.
And the roots are all above ground.
will get it
Tripping
included.
hazard.
Yeah, it is a
That
hazard.
thank you for bringing that up. You're right.
Again, it's Barbara Gaynor at Lot 1015. I'm going to talk a little bit about United Lawn Service. They seem to be involved in a lot of things here in the community, but our personal property should be one of the things that they should really look at. We have not had our lawn mowed now. It's, I would say, almost 2 weeks. When he came the last time, they made ruts in the ground. Now, we have our scheduled watering days that we're supposed to water on. Now, if they keep on changing the day that they're going to mow, our ground is going to be a little bit saturated with water. Their mowers are also over 400 pounds. They are larger than Floralawns. They are doing a lot of damage. If you go around the community, you're going to see a lot of property with ruts, just holes from the tires, from these new lawnmowers that they're using. I have tracks in my back where they make circles, and it's brought up to the gentleman who came to my home and looked at it. He says he's going to try and have it stopped. It rips up the grass. I'm not in the position as a widow to go and put new grass down. I pay to have my grass taken care of by certain companies, and they've been doing a good job. All of a sudden now, it's starting to be ripped up.
Maria, have you looked at that?
Yes, so how often are you for,
One.
You're only watering one day?
One day, because that's all we're allowed to.
Okay.
We're in a drought system.
Right,
One
exactly.
day, which was, they were coming here to do the lawn. So we were watering, now we were watering on a Sunday because they weren't coming until a Wednesday.
Right.
So that gave it a chance to dry out and,
Right.
and
What
now
I
we
would like
keep on
you-
changing.
No, what I'd like you to, so here's the thing is, they're not gonna have the exact schedule that our last landscaper had because our landscaper that we had before would just blow through all the properties. They're not supposed to be doing that. What I would like you to do is send me an email or call me and let me know, and I will handle getting out there to your property and making sure that they get it right. They didn't mow for a very long time because we're trying to get the grass to go longer and have better roots and all that deal. And of course, the grass was frozen and this and that and the other. But they meet with the committee once a month, And I handle every single complaint that we have with them. Now, the schedule is one thing they're working on trying to get better. And what they do is because they're trying to give more personalized treatment to each home, they don't necessarily always finish that row at the, on the day that they're supposed to, and they may run a little bit later. But that's no excuse for them to have ruts on your property. So I want you, remember, look, if you've got something, I'm going to take care of it for you, and I'm going to go out there and I'm going to talk to the people to make sure they do it right and don't do it again. So you don't need to worry about a thing. You just need to come to me.
I did, and you already texted me back on that situation.
So we will make sure that they don't do this anymore. And now as the spring comes, you should have the grass come in a little bit stronger, and you should be able to have a little bit better looking out there. They're trying to do what is called cross-cutting, so they don't cut the grass in the same direction every time.
Yeah, we already talked about that.
Yeah.
But my other problem is that when they came the last time, they did not edge two sides of the driveway.
And I got to know that. Yeah.
And
so they go right back out that same day, and they edge your sidewalk.
Right.
So you talk to me, and I will personally go out there and
I'll talk
make
to
them.
Lisa, because it's hard to get in touch with you
Well,
sometimes.
no, so I'm a little bit everywhere, but you're correct. If you tell Lisa about it, she'll get a hold of me, and I'll get him out there, because I can't say that we don't have any complaints, but all the problems that we do encounter, whether they run over sprinklers or they do this or do that, when I get involved and I go out there with them, they take care of it, and then our owner is satisfied that the work is being done. I just don't want you to feel like you're out there by yourself.
Oh, no, I know I'm not, because I know on my block consistently there are 4 other homes, I think, that have complained to you about it.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
We're debating on who goes first. Carol Stack, Lot 1006. Concerning the fashion show and food provider, after listening to a lot of the points that were raised, some of the questions, some of the concerns, I have to say I am very opposed to the idea of using a Summer Glen club to provide food as a caterer. Do they have a food license? Do they have, are they licensed by the state or the county or whoever does that in terms of food prep and serving? I think we're just opening ourselves to huge, huge liability. Someone already pointed out that the policy or the charter for the social committee talks about the use of vendors having the appropriate, requirements and insurance, et cetera. I doubt Cook Together has that. Tom, you talked about event insurance. Does event insurance cover food, catering? And who would pay for that event insurance? Why should we at the HOA pay for a club? The other is, I am assuming, I could be wrong, that Cook Together's intent would be to use our equipment, and meaning the stoves and other equipment. We have an amenities policy that prohibits the use of residents using our facilities for profit. I think we already have all the policies in place that say this should not be done. My personally is, why aren't you asking the restaurant for a quote? But I just think it's opening us to huge exposure. I mean, there are just so many things that can go wrong with food delivery and food prep. To give it to a club that, is using this for a fundraiser is wrong. It's just wrong. Thank you.
Donnie Wyckoff, Lot 664. I hope all of you have been able to receive the sheet that necessitates a discussion around our building and the need to get it off of the supplier's property and move it somewheres onto Summer Glen property. As you may recall, we, the Summer Glen Softball Organization, have paid for this unit. Summer Glen did not put any monies forward on that based on a CRF that we processed last year. we are going to be facing, if we can't put it ultimately in its permanent location, an incremental charge of another $1,000 for the guy to come in and move it once we get this whole permit thing resolved. As you've seen in the sheet that I hope you have in front of you, we identified 3 options. I know, Russ, you gave us a 4th one, which I didn't have on the sheet, didn't think of it, because it was so far afield from what the adjacency of the field, we didn't even put it on the table, because we've got to get equipment off of being just exposed as it is right now to the elements, because we put a tarp on them, hopefully keeping them better. And you may remember, you shared in the cost of the purchase of one of those units as well last year. Pardon?
Both of those units.
Both the units, okay, thank you, George. So I am pleading with you that we need to move. We cannot sit on this one and wait forever. The guy has got new equipment coming in, and he's basically said, you got to get it off my lot. And we own it, and we need to move it. So I guess I don't know whether you want to discuss it or how we get to a decision, but I'm pleading with you to be able to help us move it to a location sooner than later. And I don't know whether you want to wait to the board meeting for the discussion, but clearly we're also up against the other issue, which is this wonderful permit problem that we continue to labor under, that we have been dealing with since October. And we'll have to reinstitute another one. So discussion, or how do you want to, or you want to remain silent? Just tell me where we go.
Well, I'll make a few comments. So the previous board rejected the idea of sharing the cost of the storage unit, but gave the approval to go ahead and, if the softball association wanted to go ahead and buy it themselves, they'd do that, under the condition that it gets permitted. So obviously the permit has run into some issues. But looking back at the note that George had sent out to the softball association membership to kind of give a timeline of everything that's going on, the order was placed for the storage shed before the permit was even applied for. So now we're in the dilemma where we've got a permit that's hung up for multiple reasons, from what I understand, on a unit that was ordered before the permit was even applied for. So, you know, hindsight's 20/20. I don't want to be second guessing, but it's a self-inflicted problem. If we had put the permit in first and then realized, oh, there's these issues, we got to address this, we got to address that, before the unit is ordered and a deposit put down, we wouldn't be in the situation we're in right now. So I don't know, certainly there's no way the county is going to approve any location if you're planning on actively using it.
Right.
So if you want to put it in storage, there might be an option, but it would still have to be run by the county, because again, the whole idea of a permit process is you apply for the permit. Once you get the permit, then you start the work and you provide a notice of commencement. So again, the permit is in limbo. So I don't know if the county is going to allow us to even put it in storage anywhere, because it's kind of, oh, you want to put it somewhere but not use it, but you still put it on your property. So I don't know if the county is going to approve any location on a temporary basis without a permit being approved.
Do you think they need to approve it just to be put in? Let's say somebody puts it in the RV lot, which is a storage lot.
Well, Marie's already asked the question,
But
can we put it?
But not use it, obviously.
Yes, so the question was already asked, can we put it in the intended permanent location?
No, that's a no.
But not use it? And the answer was a hard no.
That's a hard no, but that was due to the permitting process and drainage and et cetera.
Did we get a hard no?
But we
or
haven't asked them on any other location.
Did we get a hard no, or did we get they didn't want to know?
So here's the
No, I
deal
think it was a
is,
hard
the
no.
people that are in the permitting office do not have the authority to say yay or nay. Obviously, so when I was speaking to this lady on the phone, she was like, I don't want to know, I don't want to know, I don't want to know, no, go away. She can't give me an answer, because she's not going to take responsibility or liability for that. So her thing was she didn't want to hear it. I was speaking to her because I was talking to her about the permit, and that's all that she wanted to talk about was the steps for the permit. And she did not want to hear anything else. I can try to go back to this lady and find out if there's something that they can provisionally provide for us. I do not know, so I can approach it again. It's only a phone call, and the worst that can happen is she definitely does say no. But again, the deal is here that the responsibility for the decision really isn't on her. So I don't know that she'll be able to give me a yes or a no. I think she's just gonna say, you have a permit that's pending, and that's what we have to deal with.
This whole permit thing is between the restaurant and not
it's
being
a
able to use
nightmare.
the patio.
It's a nightmare.
It's a nightmare, and I hate it that softball's in the middle of this mess, that somehow Summer Glen has this eye on us, and it's wrong. And, you know, Marie, so you talk to a person, and when she goes, well, I can't give you an answer, then we need to go up the ladder.
Well, find out who can, yeah.
We gotta start climbing the ladder and start knocking on some doors to get all these permits moving, because it's wrong.
All right, and I totally understand that, okay? So I'm a fighting little Spitfire down here.
I know you are.
But then I've got the big manager who says, Marie, don't you stir the pot and get stuff going that then
Well-
we can't deal with. Because it's not just this, it's lots of different things. So if we want to go further and we want to push, you need to give me the okay to push, and I will push.
Well, I would, as one member of the board, would say we need to start climbing a ladder, but I'm not only one member.
All right, let me tell you where I am on this. I went up there and spent, last Thursday, I guess it was? Last Thursday, spent another 4 hours up there, getting the permits squared away, make sure it was reassigned to me, so we had access to me, because I'm the one who pulled it, applied for it originally, and the thing, it got screwed up between Marie and I on the paperwork. So we got that squared away. I went and visited with the engineer, because I was told it was held by, I was told by zoning that it was held up by the engineer, because whatever cursory calculation.
George, grab the mic and take it out of there and hold it, so everybody else can hear.
Carol's gonna kill me, but she knows I know how to use this.
Thank you.
Whatever cursory calculation zoning does, the county engineer goes by. I don't know what algorithm zoning zone. I talked to a clerk basically in zoning. I do have a name of the zoning guy. We got a couple emails in the past from him. I also got the name of the engineer, because I went over to the county engineer's office and I talked to, and again, another clerk over there who got the county engineer on the phone to explain to her what I needed to do to free up the permit through the water management and the county engineer for this impermeable surface crap. And so she explained to you what I had to do, $300 and a variance application, which could or could not be successful, okay, would get us to start moving again. What I would like to do, and I'm cringing at the thought because I know what could happen, I would like to get Juan, my zoning guy, and I forget the engineer's first name, but his last name is Turnipseed, get him out here to go look at what we're doing, what we're trying to do, and look at the options before I move on to either re-permit, to reapply for another permit, or proceed with the current one. The problem's gonna be when they go out, you get the county engineer out here, and he sees what's going on with that berm adjacent to the property going up the hill, and what's going on in the DRA, there's gonna be hell to pay. Marie knows what I'm talking about. We've had this, Kevin, we've had this discussion before with a couple other homeowners. If you want me to do that, Marie and I'll pursue those avenues. But, you know, we're kind of like stuck here between a rock and a hard place.
The application's in your name, softball?
The application is in my name personally.
Okay.
We had me added to the approved list for Summer Glen. Amos issued a letter when I was sitting in the permit office back in October, because the paperwork Denny had filled out the paperwork to apply for the permit. His name wasn't even on the list. So
So if you're, the way I look at it, and tell me if I'm wrong, everybody, if the permit's in your name, then you should follow through with it if you're willing to do that.
I'm representing Summer Glen. I'm representing the community. I'm
Summer
I'm now
Glen-
on the community's list as
Summer
an
Glen
authorized agent
softball.
of Summer Glen.
But if you're willing to go up and talk to these people and see if you can get it moving, what difference is if he's representing yourself or Summer Glen? Is that a problem? I mean, we're trying to get this done because it is a major problem.
I just want to make sure if I'm representing Summer
Well,
Glen.
that's
I'm
the
representing this
question I
board.
have for the rest
If you
of the
turn
board.
me loose, I wanted to let you know what the repercussions could be. That's all. I just,
The last thing that they are looking at, and the reason that hasn't been approved, is because they're saying it's a building that has a roof. As long as it has a roof, then it impacts the
permeable.
the permeable water, for the
Well,
SWIFT money.
if they look at the bocce courts, they already have the cement there.
Correct.
So if they put it there, we don't need any more cement.
Correct.
You aren't gonna put it on cement anyways, right?
No.
It sits off the ground.
Correct.
It doesn't matter when you deal with impervious surface. I've had
It's-
this around with other towns. It is what
Exactly.
covers.
Right.
So it
So
runs off and runs under. I'm
Doesn't
sorry.
matter.
that is the most ideal spot, because I was down there yesterday. And there's 3 bocce courts that aren't being used. And 2 of them would take the
We need is one.
well, no, you really need 2 unless you're gonna move benches and all.
It fits on one, Dan,
Okay,
and it would have the ability to have access both ways.
Okay.
If we're gonna use it longer term. But I know in the past, because I was part of a strategic planning exercise, maybe somewhere down the road, 5 more years from now, from when it was first put on, we're gonna put a pavilion there. Who knows what we're gonna use it for?
well, that pavilion's
Yeah, I know.
probably never gonna happen.
And do you have to then amend your permit to move it to a different location?
I'd have to
Probably.
reapply
Yes,
probably.
we'd reapply.
And what about electrical?
That we don't, that's the other problem. On
Don't
the
even
bocce
put
court-
electrical
No,
in
but
it.
the initial permit said electrical.
That's a problem,
No,
yeah.
the-
What,
all right.
what do you
Initial
need
per-
electrical for in there?
For the light, there's no windows
There's
in the
no
building.
windows at all.
There's no windows in the building. We're without windows.
Well,
It's got electrical inside. I mean, it's got, it comes with
It's pre-wired.
The base
Pre-wired.
building is pre-wired for 1 electrical outlet and 1 overhead
George.
light.
But I would propose for the temporary location, again, let's deal with it 2 steps. Temporary, you don't need electrical. The guys will have to learn how to deal without it. Longer term, we'll deal with that as part of the permit if we are sitting in a spot that ultimately may be better.
but you're not gonna be able to use it temporarily without a permit, probably.
Why?
I don't know, I
That's part of what George can do.
well,
I mean, all they can do is say no.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, they
But,
could say no, yeah.
You know, I'm not nearly as, you know, I know what you're saying as far as the DRA, the erosion and whatnot. That's a different group. That's state of Florida, that's Southwest Florida Water Management District. However, if the inspector does come out or the engineer does come out, they're gonna look around the whole softball area.
Correct.
Is there anything else out there that was not permitted? Don't answer the question. Because he will
I
note
already know the
that.
answer.
I
to
will
that.
plead the 5th.
So he will note that. That's to me, that's the bigger concern. If he sees anything else out there that should have been permitted that was not, that's gonna open that can of worms.
Right.
Which is exactly what happened to the restaurant.
Exactly.
Correct.
He's in here looking at something else and saw that.
But we still have to go forward because we can't keep just putting this off.
No,
A
we-
decision's got to be made to let George go out through the permit.
I say let George go.
I agree.
don't. Yeah, I think we got to piecemeal this. There's the initial issue that, you know, and you got to solve them one piece at a time. The initial issue is the damn thing's got to get off of the guy's lot. We got to find a home for it temporarily. And the usage of it and all, that's secondary to finding a home.
Correct.
And to me, sitting it on the bocce ball court for a matter of weeks or a couple of months or something, it makes some element of sense, and what you've done is just incurred the cost by moving it twice instead of once. But if that's what you have to do to solve the immediate problem, I think it's the practical short-term thing is, put it on a bocce ball court or put it on the RV lot or, someplace that's already in
The
place.
RV lot is not feasible.
Why?
Because it's too far away, and we're having it striped
No,
and
it's more of the
and it's gonna
emulsion
be
treatment
moved
that's coming
twice.
up.
But you realize to do that, the project of doing that in the RV lot is to get everybody in all those slots to move their stuff that,
Well, they're gonna have to.
Plus, you're gonna have to have a key
That's been tried
access.
before, and it doesn't work. But I mean,
Yes.
so the RV lot doesn't work, but the bocce ball court or in the maintenance facility someplace, just to solve the immediate real problem of get it the hell off their lot, because the ramification of then, I think the idea of bringing somebody out here and potentially opening that can of worms it should totally be off the table, because the short-term deal can be solved. It's just a matter of which one we want to do. And,
Well, I still think we give it to George, let him talk to the county, see if he can get it just moved to a location on property without a permit,
Oh, yeah.
if they're okay.
Yeah, well, I meant the thing about getting people out here. I think
Yeah.
that we don't want to do
No.
that under any circumstance.
Nope.
Okay.
So
I
as far
will
as
try
the-
to avoid that. What I will try and do is I want to try and get the zoning guy who did the cursory calculation and the engineer together, so I understand how they're dealing with the impermeable. So they understand this thing is up and it's next to a berm and okay,
Yeah,
all
but
that.
it-
The other option that we really haven't talked about here, we don't like this option. I don't think the homeowners like this option. But there's actually a parcel of land that includes part of the softball outfield. The way the parcel is set up, Marie knows about this, there's a wedge of property that goes across the right field. It's actually a separate parcel on the plat, okay? That's a wedge of property that incorporates right field and the property, the bounding property between the outfield fence and the houses along, was the back road there?
This yellow
All
line.
right? So there's
little
no
line, shoot, that's a
concrete
separate
on that
parcel from
property.
this.
So I could permit it for that property because I have up to 30% of that property to put concrete on.
But that's the problem, that you're still putting a building on the property.
No.
No.
Here's,
I see what
I'm
you're
putting on a plot that
So if you see
currently
the
has
yellow line?
no
Yeah. So this
concrete on it,
little
other than the
wedge
fence
here
post
Yeah.
on the outfield
is
fence.
a separate
And
parcel.
whose house are we gonna
Correct.
put that in
From
front
here.
of?
Yeah,
So this is all open space.
got
There
it
there
on
is no
map. It's
impervious surface here at all.
right.
So theoretically,
right field.
30%
I
of
know,
that
but
is
it's gonna be
available.
in front of someone's house.
As opposed to this has the RV parking lot, this has.
Oh,
the-
okay.
So what I'd also like to do in talking to the engineer and talking to the zoning guy is bring that piece of property into the discussion. You're not letting me put it on this huge piece of property, which is the DRA, the softball field, the bocce courts, the RV park, because we don't have enough
But
permeable.
that's option two.
Randy.
Slot there.
Option one is to put it on the bocce court, correct?
Option one is we'll pursue
For the
looking
bocce.
at the bocce courts. I
Okay.
still want to look at the original location.
Yep.
And I have some things we can fool around with. We're trying to get on the original, because we're never going to build on that parcel.
No.
Nothing's ever going to be built there.
No.
So we
But
should be
the-
able to take credit for that in the calculation if we put the
The
building.
only thing
where
that
we want.
I would think is the homeowners that own them homes. You
That's
know,
why I don't want to put it back there. Nothing's ever going to get put back
know.
there. So why can't we get credit for that in putting the building
Well,
Your original location is still the best location.
correct?
Yeah.
So, George, I guess one of the questions, assuming you go out and talk to the zoning guy, is it by individual parcel or is it what they refer to as retention basins? There's, I don't know how many different retention basins, so each one of those parcels drain into a retention basin.
What I understand is that tertiary, whatever you want to call it, cursory calculation that the zoning guys do and give a thumbs up, thumbs down to the county engineer is because I asked the gals, I said, if I go in and I got my piece of property and I want to add concrete to it, you're limited total 35, I think it was 35% or 30% of your property. So I can add up to counting my foundation or my pad, I could put up to 30% total, that additional concrete.
Right.
So any piece of property, any plat can have up to 30% covered by concrete without doing any further calculations or drainage studies. All right. We also looked at, Marie and I looked at, we did this in the past, we put the concrete aprons around the snack shack and what have you, and the bleachers that, I don't know how many years ago. We got Riddle out here, who did the original calculations for all the DRAs and the flooding for Florida Leisure, and he actually said, this is a no, never mind. I got plenty of fat because there were supposed to be houses where the dog park is, and there were supposed to be houses where the empty lot behind the RV park was. That was all supposed to be covered by up to 30% concrete. He shows plats back there. He goes, there's plenty of fat in the calculation. I'll give you a letter. He gave us a letter. We got it permitted. We can't get a hold of Riddle. And Jeff mentioned to me that apparently a couple of years ago, we apparently tried to contact Riddle in order to configuration management, basically as-built the calculations and maintain them. And Riddle doesn't want to have anything to do with it because it's a small piece of work for them.
Yeah, it's just such a small piece of work. He said, you know, I just don't even want to take the job on at all.
That's another option for us to bring that back in here and just so we have it and maybe hire another engineer to keep it.
Well, the ball's in your court and you're going to.
If you guys will give me the go-ahead, I'll continue to act as the agent for Summerlin. I'll work it.
I just caution you, he's going to, walking around the area, so if there is
Well,
anything out there that is not, he's going to go look at the records for that parcel and see make sure everything has a permit.
It's going to be done one way or the other. I mean, whatever we got.
Just so everybody's aware.
I understand, but we got a problem. We got an elephant in the room that's got to be moved.
So can I test understanding about direction? Because I don't like to walk away, we thought this, we thought that. He's going to go have the conversations with the county. We are going to pursue the location with them as to what they can agree to let us put it in, even if it's only as a temporary. And you're permitting us to do so with that direction being fed back to you? Yes or no?
We're permitting you to do the evaluation. There's no guarantee until we have a formal board meeting and vote as a board. We're not voting today, so
I know.
we can't give you formal approval.
That's why I was testing understanding. So we will have to be back here in April for a conversation about the temporary location.
Yes.
Correct.
Good.
Okay.
Got it.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank
thanks.
you.
Good luck.
And if you do a good job, George, we got a couple other permits you can work on.
I hate to hear what his hourly rate is.
Yep.
Good luck, Jim.